Okay, man, are you ready to go?
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Gino here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today it is time to listen to the magic because Modern Horizons 2 has arrived, which means we need to get into those cards. We need to tell you which cards are good, which ones are maybe less good, which cards are underrated. And to do that, as always, I am joined by Magic Master Kyle Moran. Hey, Kyle.
Hey, Gino. How you doing?
Good. How goes world gorging?
Well, world gorging is, it's been an interesting time since they banned the astrolabe. It's like they were trying to make Wasteland better, and they succeeded in doing that in Legacy. So
finally, Wasteland's good in Legacy.
Yeah, finally, it's like, oh no, I don't get to Wasteland people anymore because of astrolabe, and now they banned astrolabe, and now everyone's wastelanding each other at Delvers. So yeah, also this new set. Delver's even better now with this new set. Who would have thought? They print another modern set and Delver gets better. Oh boy. Yeah, we'll get to that part though. I'll have my 2 cents in that.
We will. So everything good on the competitive scene? Are you still keeping up?
Didn't quite get the I guess I don't know if I said it. It's like I just barely missed the last PT and what was it? I guess it would be the Strixhaven PT invite, but one of my good friends was on it and I helped him test for that and he made day 2. So his first Pro Tour, which is cool. So
very nice.
Missions accomplished.
The Internet Pro Tour.
Yes. There have been a lot of Internet Pro Tours now, so I don't know if it's adequate to call it the Internet Pro Tour anymore, but
Internet Pro Tour.
And Internet Pro Tour for sure. I can't wait to go back to regular Pro Tours and paper, and we get to go places. It was something else. Yeah. It's crazy how much the Pro Tours changed. Like, I remember my first Pro Tour, they paid for me to go to Kyoto. It's insane. It just ain't like that anymore. But,
yeah, and we'll see. We'll see if they have gotten used to not paying to fly people to countries.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go back to doing that. But, maybe back to where it's like you get to go to Richmond, Virginia or something. Even that was
Great city, Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
So before we get into Modern Horizons 2, first, a little bit of housekeeping. You can get in touch with the show at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens, even $1. Any amount that you want us to provide in support of the show will get you access to our Discord, where you can discuss stuff with the host of the show. You can suggest games for us to play on the podcast, on the main show, on our side shows. You can get in on game nights with us. So go ahead, support the show if you can, if you've been enjoying our content. And also, I wanted to ask Kyle, a little bit of housekeeping kind of with Magic. How are you feeling about the big changes to competitive? They're shutting down the Magic, the Pro League and the Rivals League, and they've replaced it with seemingly nothing so far.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description but yeah, no, it's been very interesting because the pro scene in terms of Magic has gone through many changes in the last few years, and so like this one, it feels like is the next. Obviously, this one's a bit different than the last because it's like it felt like they were replacing one system with another one, and now this time it feels like they're just kind of removing something. And honestly, when it comes to these kind of conversations, out of like the group of people who are kind of affected by this, I feel like I'm actually one of the more positive ones about this because every time I hear like it's on, especially if you're on Magic Twitter, I don't know if people are on Magic Twitter, it's like it was a lot back when this was first these things were announcements were coming out. People were like doomsaying like this is the end of like professional Magic, like competitive will never recover from this, like this is like my pro career is over. But there's actually like some good to what like. Turning like something to nothing, I guess, is not the great part.
Yes.
The MPL was a mess.
Yes.
The MPL and the Rivals League, like that was, oh my God. I could go on for so long about how awful that was and all the reasons why it was so awful. Like the biggest one though is that the way in which you got onto it was, did anyone know? I didn't know. Maybe near the very end I started getting an idea, but like, this is like 2 years into the system, and I was starting to get an idea of how to actually qualify for said system, which is insane. But so getting rid of that, great. And honestly, the thing, and like, if Wizards wants to make Magic not a professional game, I don't think that's a terrible thing. Like, if you look at where they're making their money nowadays, like these pro, like, high level Magic stuff, it isn't really where it's at. And also, just because there's not like I'm not able to support myself financially 100% from Magic anymore, doesn't mean you can't still, like, get, like, they're still gonna have a Pro Tour, and, there's still gonna be competitive Magic is still gonna be alive and well, in my opinion, because the amount of people who are actually pros is, like, we're talking about, like, the 0.1% here. So and also they're adding more money to the Pro Tours from this in the same announcement they asked. Yeah. So at least to me, I see it's like they're taking money from the top and they're, bringing it down a little bit, which I think is a great thing. Like,
yeah.
That in itself, that piece of it, not the whole announcement, but that piece of taking money from, or they're out, taking is maybe the wrong word, but reallocating. That's a better way of putting it.
Yeah. I mean, they basically went from the pro system, the old platinum gold pro system, where a bunch of people made a little money and got a little help to go to tournaments, and turned it into, actually, what if, like, less than 100 people could make careers out of this? Like, all they do is play Magic.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, they created these leagues that just were not compelling, because watching the best players in the world play these formats that largely were bad, and stagnant week after week after week after week for a year or more, like, watching someone make a 20% more optimal play than an ordinary experienced player every turn, week after week, day after day, it's not what I come to the game for. And it turns out, if you look at the Magic Pro League's streaming numbers, it's not what anyone comes to the game for. It turns out.
That's definitely another huge piece of it as well, where it's just, the content they were making for the Pro League and all that kind of stuff was not very compelling in the slightest. Hold on, sorry, can we cut it for a sec? I don't know.
Watching some of the, like, reallocating that money, you could reallocate that money to almost anything, and I would think it was a better use of money than what the Pro League was in terms of ROI. And it wasn't even especially aspirational, because, like you said, very few people knew how the hell to get on it. And the odds of getting into the Rivals League to then get into the Pro League to then make, like $60,000 a year?
Yeah, not even. I think actually, no, you did make, I think it was like 50 something grand.
I think the Pro League, the MPL, that one made like 60, but then I think the Rivals was like 30 or something. Like, it was enough to sustain a person in a low cost area. Living in a very low rent apartment.
Yep. Yeah. No, it was nothing to aspire for, or that's the whole point, is to aspire for, and it wasn't very inspiring. But, for what it's worth, like, even under the old system, which everyone loves to say, like, was the best thing ever, and it was very good in many different ways, like, to be a Platinum Pro was about as hard, if not, like, the amount of Platinum Pros that existed is around the same as the MPL. Like, Platinum was hard. It was hard to be a Platinum Pro.
Totally. And I mean, most of the money in Magic for incredibly skilled players comes from content creation. It still does. That is still the case. Streaming, writing articles, like, that is how you might be able to support yourself. Patreons and things like that. It's not from winning tournaments.
No, it's not. Like, hell, it's funny. I actually just recently got my first Twitch check. So, yeah. Made you can do it. You can do it even if you're not the best. So, but yeah, no, it was not a lot, but it was more the principle of the thing, So,
totally. So it's a weird change. We'll see. I am more concerned that Wizards just doesn't put more money into the Pro. Like, they don't balance the money they took away from the Pro League by putting it into literally anything else. They might just pocket it and say, actually, all of our money comes from Commander anyway, so who cares?
Yeah, like, they feel like they want to do that, but they've already, on the bright side, they have already, like, made announcements saying, like, not saying that they aren't going to do that, but, like, things that point towards not doing that. Cause like they doubled the prize pool of the Pro Tours. Like, that's a thing or almost doubled, like 1.8x or something like that. That is a tangible change, which I think will definitely be felt on the Pro Tour. So
sure,
that's great. I'm all about that.
So with that change to competitive, let's look at one of the most competitive sets made in the last year or so.
Yeah, since last Modern Horizons, right?
Yep. Well, did Modern Horizons come out after Eldraine? Yeah, it did, I think.
Did it? Did it? I can't remember.
Yeah, so I think Modern Horizons definitely shook the world, shook every format other than Standard. And Modern Horizons 2 looks like it is primed to do something very similar. Kyle, why don't you explain, for those who do not understand or do not know Modern Horizons, what is Modern Horizons? What was its goal? Where is it legal?
Yeah. So as the name would imply, it's a set, like it's a Magic set like any other with like the cards, but it's a set unlike most sets, which are like expansions that are just released in the Standard, and then you do that thing with it. This set is designed specifically for the Modern format, which is if you've ever played Modern,
years old now.
Yeah, it's the mainstay Eternal format in Magic at this point. So I think it's like 8th edition is where the cutoff is. So all the cards,
it is. When the card frame changed.
Yep.
Right around when I started playing the game. Oh God.
Yeah, I'm not that old yet. I guess I won't ever be that old because you can't. That's not how that time works. But yeah, it's a while ago. A lot of cards legal in Modern. So this set, because it's designed for a format with such a large card pool, they kind of push the envelope with the power level of a lot of the cards. So yeah, it's these set, like the last Modern Horizons was one of, if not the most powerful set ever made, and a lot of cards had to get banned from it, and even the cards that weren't banned made humongous impacts on the format, and for lack of a better word, changed the shape of the Modern format, and so they're running it back, they're doing it again. I don't think this one's is broken, but the idea is that these cards are priced to move. Like, they are powerful cards and a lot of them. So we'll have plenty to talk about.
The complexity is very high. They brought back a bunch of mechanics. It feels almost like a time spiral set.
Yep.
Like just mechanics from everywhere. It is only legal in Modern, Legacy, Commander, and Vintage. So you're not going to see these cards and I guess Limited. Like you can draft this. They did make this draftable.
Yeah, but good luck affording it.
Yeah, good luck affording it. But this set is basically powered up so that it will make an impact on these formats that are 20 plus years old. So a lot of the cards are very juiced. We're not going to go over all the mechanics like we do in new set releases because they're all recurring mechanics.
There's a lot of them.
And there's a lot of them. So we're just going to go straight to card evaluations. So Kyle, what do you think is the best white card and why is it Solitude?
Yeah, dang it. You beat me to it. Yeah, no, Solitude's really, really good because it costs 0 mana and 0 mana card's good. But to be more specific, what makes Solitude so good is that White's had Path to Exile for a long time, obviously. He's like the go-to white removal spell, like best thing ever for white, like removal. And a lot of people said like the one thing that White has going for it in the Modern format, and for the longest time they were kind of right. So, and Solitude's another really solid, cheap removal option that White gets access to. Not even to mention all the shenanigans you can do with it, with Ephemerate, obviously, like flicker effects, or just casting it for 5 mana and getting the 2-for-1 because
Solitude, for those who don't know, is a 3 generic mana, white, so 5 total. For a creature elemental incarnation, it is a 3/2 with flash, lifelink, and when Solitude enters the battlefield, exile up to one other target creature. That creature's controller gains life equal to its power, and then evoke. So evoke is a mechanic where you pay the evoke cost, and then you put the creature you cast the creature basically, but then you have to sacrifice it immediately.
Yeah.
So its evoke cost is exile a white card from your hand. So Solitude is basically Sword to Plowshares. With the cost, if you just exile a white card from your hand. So it basically functions like an instant, even though it's a creature. But then you can just cast it for its mana cost. And if you do that, then you just get the 2-for-1 clean. You can also, like you said, Kyle, ephemerate, like blink effects. With the evoke sacrifice trigger on the stack, you can target your Solitude and blink it. And then when it comes back into play, it no longer has the sacrifice clause affecting it. So you just get a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 off of that.
Yeah, and you get the ETB twice and a third time if you had your upkeep with it because of Fenrir's rebound. But yeah, so that combo is obviously powerful, and like blinking it with any, or not just a Fenrir, blinking it with anything is very good. But yeah, it's just like also the body having lifelink. Lifelink's one of the best keywords in Magic. Not that, you're casting it for 5 mana, but yeah, this card, it's just priced, like many of the cards in this set, it's priced to move. This card is, you can't really argue with 0 mana. Like, yeah, it's card disadvantage, and there's definitely so you don't just jam in every single white deck ever, but like...
Don't you? Anything other than an aggro deck, why would you not?
It kind of depends on what you're doing with white. Like in control, right? Like 2-for-1ing myself for my removal in control is a costly endeavor. So not always particularly worth it. And you gotta also evaluate for the meta, right? Because if you're exiling like a 4-mana creature with your 0 mana thing, it's like, wow, yeah, I'm down a card, but that was a great exchange in mana. And mana is everything in Modern, so that's good. But if my opponent's casting a bunch of Monastery Swiftspears and Goblin Guides and Soulscar Mages, I am a little less happy solituding. So, you gotta evaluate it a little bit. I don't think you can just jam 4 of this everywhere, but it's very good. Very, very, very good.
Yeah. This card really, this entire cycle, so there's a cycle of these elemental incarnations. They're all mythics. They all are free on Evoke and have some sort of big, powerful ETB effect. I actively hate this school of design. I understand that the Modern format is incredibly powerful. I think that printing free spells is just lazy design. I really hate, hey, how do we make a card affect the Modern format? We make it cost no mana. And there's a lot of cards that we're going to talk about today that are free in one way or another. And yeah, if you, how you impact the Modern format and Legacy and all these formats, you print cards that don't cost anything. Yeah, so definitely this is the best white card. I think it's not especially close. It might not be the most powerful, splashy effect, but it's just you can't articulate how much a free spell changes the way your opponent has to play at all times. Like the last round of free spells that they printed in Modern Horizons 1, Pact of Negation, Force of Negation?
Yeah, there's the Force of X. That was the cycle.
Yeah, the Force cycle, they printed a free counter spell, a free double naturalize, all those spells had tremendous impacts across all formats because they're free.
Yeah, well, not all of them. The red one, I don't think I ever saw the red one, or the black one for that matter. Or wait, what was the white or the white one? I think the green, the blue one, especially the blue one, though, those were really, really good.
Yeah, I need to remember what they did, but
yeah, the red one made 3/1s. The black one killed things if they entered this turn. And then what's it called? The white one was an anthem, +1/+1, on enchantment.
All right, but yeah, all of those forces are much narrower than these effects. I would say that almost all of the elemental incarnations are stronger than all but Force of Negation and Force of Naturalize.
Yeah, I think Force of Negation still stands a cut above the rest, but besides, I think on average, take the power level of the elementals, I'd say, yeah, they're higher than the Force cycle most likely. It's kind of crazy because Force Negation is just the best one by a mile, in that cycle, and the rest of them are okay to bad. So
yeah, so Solitude, incredibly powerful. You're gonna play this card. You're gonna see this card a lot.
Because I don't actually think Solitude's the best by far. I actually think Prismatic Ending is also very good. But I guess we'll get to that.
Sure. So let's move on to a card that we think is overrated in white.
Yes.
Anything overrated?
Overrated cards in white. Honestly, it's not a ton. I think you could maybe make an argument for Karmic Guide because I feel people think this card's modern playable, at all, and it's not. Literally never. So, if you ever think about playing
Karmic Guide do?
It's a reprint from Urza's whatever. It's 5 mana for a 2/2 flying pro black, Echo for 5 more mana, or it's 3 and 2 white, and the Echo's also 3 and 2 white. And then when it enters the battlefield, you return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. the reason I say this is overrated, like you look at a card like this and you think like, oh, obviously, like I look at this like there's no way this is playable, but like this is a reprint from Legacy and it saw like marginal Legacy play, so people are like, Legacy card or modern card? So no, this card's really bad. So but like it's also very popular in Commander, like extremely popular in Commander. So people play it there and they're like, oh, this card's good. So good in Modern? No, not good in Modern. Don't play Karmic Guide.
Agreed. That card's not, the rate is not what it needs to be. 5 mana
No,
to reanimate.
it was always using combos, but you can even do better in those combos. Like Body Double is better like 9 times out of 10 in those combos. So,
Mm-hmm. For me, I'm just gonna say Esper Sentinel.
Really? Interesting.
So it's white, for a 1/1 artifact creature human soldier. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless that player pays X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. This card is made exactly for humans. It is 100% a humans card. You can, I guess, play it in some artifact decks, potentially. I just think that it's micro-targeted, right? They made a card for humans. That's all it's really designed to do. And I just don't know if that pay X or something bad happens, if it was counter it or something like that and it gave protection, I think I'd be more into Esper Sentinel. I think that humans' biggest problem has always been sweepers, right? And
yeah,
Esper Sentinel doesn't actually help with sweepers all that much. Like getting one card after your opponent 4-for-1 to you. I mean, it's better than not getting the card, but it doesn't actually solve the bigger issue necessarily. And I also think that some of the better removal spells that were printed recently are not non-creature spells. So some of the elemental incarnations mess up humans pretty bad, and they are not non-creature spells.
Yeah. Like the one thing is I do think that some affinity decks have started like popping up using white because apparently a lot of the affinity or the modular and affinity cards in this set are like white and blue, and so and sometimes red too. So I think that an affinity deck might want it. Not all affinity decks. There's definitely the Hardened Scales versions too, and I don't think this fits in that. But I think there might be an artifact-based aggro deck that might want this card as well. But obviously, it's very good in humans. There's not that many one-drops that deck plays. There's like Hierarch and Champion, and like I'd say this card is right up there with those. And so I guess Aether Vial too. That card's very good. But you all play good one-drops with your Aether Vial, so that's okay. Yeah, I think it's good with humans because humans actually does have a lot. I think they do have a lot of ways to like prevent a verdict. The problem is that their deck's just like a house of cards, right? Where it's like you name Meddling Mage on Supreme Verdict, but then they answer your Meddling Mage and they verdict you anyway, and it's like or like the same thing with Kitesail Freebooter. Just
yeah, there's a lot of ways that you get swept, and Esper Sentinel only hits the first non-creature spell. So you're never really blowing your opponent out. You're just making their gigantic blowouts not as terrible for you.
Yeah.
For the most part. Like, I don't think that humans is going to be getting repeated value off of Esper Sentinel.
No, and also your opponent's just not going to give you repeated value off of Esper Sentinel. Like, they're just not going to keep casting spells into it. Because it's a Punisher card. Your opponent has to agree to the terms and conditions. It's very similar to Thalia in that sense, but except it's obviously worse than Thalia because Thalia makes you pay and this doesn't. So
that's the thing. So I think it's good. I think it'll see play some in humans. I just think that maybe we'll find out that the cards that just clock your opponent faster are more valuable than the Esper Sentinel.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a good pick.
What about underrated white cards?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's fair to say because I was talking Prismatic Ending earlier, but I don't even know if that's fair to call it underrated because I think people are properly hyped up about it. But for an I still did want to mention it because I think the card is I think it is genuinely close on the power level of Prismatic Ending and Solitude. Like Prismatic Ending is one of the best removal spells ever printed. Like, not even kidding.
What does it do?
So it is, white and X, X and white. And it's a sorcery, and it's Converge, exile target non-land permanent if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast this spell. So like the X doesn't actually matter, it just lets you put as many colors as you want into it. So this lets you answer, like, white doesn't really have a spot removal spell that lets you answer 1-drops on 1 and 2-drops on 2, like, cleanly. Like Path to Exile makes them get a basic land. So just like, if your opponent goes like, I was talking about the Monastery Swiftspear problem. Your opponent goes like, or like Soulscar Mage. They go like Swiftspear or Soulscar on 1, and you can just go like Plains Exile it. Like no strings attached, just get it out of here. Like that's a powerful effect. And non-land permanent too, like for control decks, like this is an answer to Aether Vials. Like I just get to, my opponent goes, like I cannot tell you the amount of times my opponent just kept like a 1-lander with an Aether Vial. Cause it's like, oh, they can't remove my Aether Vial, so I'll just get all my creatures into play off of it. So, and they just go turn 1 Aether Vial. I'm like, exit, get it out of here. 1 mana, exile it, get it out. Like this card's really good. Really, really good. You need like 3 colors to cast it. And like with Triomes and Fetch Lands, that's like literally free in Modern. So card's ridiculously powerful. Very, very good. But I don't know if it's overrated though, because people are pretty hyped on it. Or sorry, underrated. My apologies. I do have a different underrated card though.
Sure, go for it.
So, or actually, I guess I have a couple. Like, but the one I really like, this is kind of one since I got to personally play the set a little bit because it came out literally hours after they put the full spoiler up, is Timeless Dragon. So the reason I think this card's underrated is because this card's nuts in control mirrors. Like it does everything you want to do in a control mirror. Like having plane cycling in a control mirror where you just like get to hold up your mana, opponent doesn't do anything, and you get to go end step, get a land from my deck, and then have a threat, an uncounterable threat in my graveyard. Like that's everything. That's so good. Like they have to answer the 4/4 or else they're gonna die. They can't counter the 4/4, and you just get to go for it at your leisure, and you just get to put tons of lands into play. Like what more could you possibly ask for in a control mirror? Like I can't even think about it. So yeah, and also it's just like a decently statted threat. Like for in Modern's world, it's not the best at that, but it's okay. 4 mana 4/4 flying, like get a land kind of thing. Sort of 6 mana, or like 5 mana 5/5 flying that like when it dies you can pay 4 and bring it back as a 4/4. Like neither of those are terrible rates. So it's obviously has best control mirrors, but it's a decent value threat as well. Just like playing it.
I'm surprised. So I thought this card was unplayable. I still think it kind of is, but it's 3 white for a 5/5 flying dragon, plane cycling for 2, so you can pay 2, discard this card, search your library for a planes, reveal it, put it into your hand. Important to note that it is not basic planes, it is planes, so you can get dual lands, you can get triomes, and then you can eternalize it for 2 white, which means you exile this card from your graveyard and you create a token that's a copy of this card except it's a 4/4 black zombie dragon with no mana cost, and you can eternalize as a sorcery. So yeah, I see this as a sideboard card in control mirrors, sure. I don't know that this is this the sideboard card you'd bring in a control mirror out of all of the control mirror sideboard cards that exist?
Like honestly, it's like up there. Like also against decks that try and make you discard a bunch of cards, which it's hard to like pin them down because there's a lot of like red blacky kind of stuff, like with Liliana and like Thoughtseize. Like this card's like Jund would be a good example of a deck like that. This card is excellent against Jund. Excellent. Oh my goodness. They have a really hard time beating this card. But yeah, I honestly cause like the cards you generally bring in control mirrors are like cheap counter magic, right? Like that's what you bring in. Like the threats, I don't know, like there's Teferi Time Raveler, and people are main decking that one at this point. So it's basically just cheap counter magic, but this card lets you attack from a different axis and it gives you lands, and it's an uncounterable threat. I think this card's quite good. I don't know. I've been playing it in my personal blue-white control lists, and it has performed pretty well. Like, so, I could be wrong, but I do have some games under my belt with this guy, and I have liked it, so.
Cool. For me, I don't know. Is Resurgent Belief underrated?
Yeah, I've heard a little, but I'm honestly not sure. Is that? I guess it would be.
I'm going to say because it's free again. Resurgent Belief is 0 mana, sorcery, white. It has to spend 2 for 1 generic and a white. So you pay 1 generic and a white. You put this into exile with 2 time counters on it. When the last time counter is removed from it, you cast the spell for free. And in this case, there's no mana cost, so like Suspend can cast cards with mana costs. In this case, they're the only way to cast this out of your hand without cheating it into play is Suspend. And then its effect is return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So Resurgent Belief, it's so cheap to suspend, and Suspend 2 is just, next turn you take a token off, and then the following turn it happens. That's so fast that this card doesn't need to be in a dedicated Cascade deck or Electro Dominance or As Foretold deck. So all of those cards are used mainly to cheat these free Suspend cards into play. That's what they've traditionally been used for. But Resurgent Belief is so cheap that you could play it in an enchantment-focused deck fairly, and it would be fine. And it also could potentially lead to a kind of Living End style deck, except enchantments instead of creatures. Like, there are a lot of good cycling enchantments. Shark Typhoon springs to mind. Cast Out is another good one. I think there are some more. There's a Cyclone also from Ikoria. That's when it's in play. If you're going to cast a spell, I think it's if you cycle.
That's when you cycle a card, like kind of experimental, or like it exiles the card, and you and you flip off the top
until
your deck until you get a card of the same type, and then it casts out of the paying its mana cost. So.
Yeah, so if you're playing a enchantment focused deck, you can turn your cycling enchantments into other enchantments cast for free. So I think that the bones are there to make a weird cheaty enchantment deck. And Resurgent Belief could just go into an enchantment focused fair deck as well. So I think that it's just powerful enough, and it's free. So you might be able to get in there. Like, there were a number of Cascade cards that were already enchantments that would, be happy to be played off of this for free and then cascade into better cards.
Yeah, the only reason I was like, I wasn't sure if it was underrated or not, because on one hand, it was like, the effect's so powerful. Like, it's ridiculously powerful. It's 2 mana, Suspend 2 for an insanely powerful effect. But I haven't really seen much of it or mentioned people talking about it. So that's why, like, that would be the part that leads me to believe it is underrated, but don't people know it's powerful? So I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's a good pick. Like, if people aren't talking about this, then yeah, it's a great pick for underrated.
So, moving on to blue, what do we think is the best card in blue? And tell me why it's the Elemental Incarnation in blue.
Oh, see, this is where we disagree, actually.
Ooh.
I think that was my overrated card. I think Subtlety is horrible, actually. I think it is very bad. So we'll have an interesting conversation about that. But I actually think the best blue card is Murktide Regent, because it's ridiculous. It's 7 mana for a 3/3, but it has Delve, everyone's favorite, very fair mechanic, Whoa. Do you remember, were there ever any blue Delve cards that were banned in formats? I can't quite.
I remember 2 of them.
Yeah. I remember about 2 as well. Banned in a few formats, Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time. If you know it, you know it. But yeah, so this one, 7 mana, but Delve, and for a 3/3 flyer, but it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for each instant or sorcery card exiled with it. And whenever an instant or sorcery card leaves your graveyard, it gets another counter. So this is like in like a Phoenix deck, or I guess Phoenix isn't a thing anymore, but like the blue-red Prowessy Delver, it's like a blue-red like spells deck in a control deck sideboard. Just as like, this is like Tombstalker is just like, what the hell happened, man? Like, this is like the Tombstalker effect, to just better, and it's in blue. It's just like, what? It's like, you don't even have to like, really, like, you do have to like play spells, but like, people are already playing this in Blue-Red Delver and Legacy. It costs 80 something tickets on Moto right now. You can't even get a copy of it anymore. It's just one of the most efficient creatures ever printed in blue. It's like yes, because blue is the color of efficient beaters apparently now. So I don't know. I don't know. This card just stats in blue, and it doesn't usually get stats, but Yeah,
I mean, I didn't love this card when I first saw it because I remember that Tombstalker exists. And that card is good, but doesn't see a ton of modern play right now. But the keyword is they took a black card and put it in a better color, and put it in the best color in Magic. And now you don't have to splash a second color to get your finisher. Like
Yeah.
Gurmag Angler saw a lot of play. It was a 5/5 with no flying, just a one that functionally played as a 1-drop in some strategies. You know, it cost 1 mana in a lot of strategies, but you had to be in black. So a lot of these decks became Grixis, or a lot of these decks became something splash black for Gurmag Angler or other delve threats.
Yep.
Now you don't need to go to the other color. So your mana is more efficient. You're lower to the ground, generally speaking, because you don't have to do the stretching. And yeah, it just turns out that if you color shifted Tombstalker into the best color in Magic, it sees play.
And made it better. Don't forget they made it better. And also shout out to Counterspell. You know, it's very, the only reason I didn't go with that one was because I think, what's it called? Murktide Regent is going to have more impact across multiple formats, where obviously Counterspell is only going to make an impact in Modern because it was already legal in Commander and Legacy. So the impact there is non-existent. So, you know, but that card's really powerful. Play Counterspell. It's really good. It's really, really good.
Sure. So I'm going with Subtlety. It's 2 blue for a 3/3 flash flying. When Subtlety enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature spell or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. Evoke, exile a blue card from your hand. Free counterspell. It counters creatures, so it's kind of the inverse of Pact of Negation. And yeah, your opponent puts the creature on the top or bottom of their library, so either they get rid of it or you steal their next draw step. This is probably, I like this one more for casting than for evoking, but having the evoke mode is pretty powerful. Just being able to get a 3/3 flash flyer that counters your opponent's creature is a heck of a 2-for-1. Like, usually the 2-for-1-y counterspell creatures cost 5 or more. Subtlety, I think, is a real clock by itself, really efficiently costed. You could just put this in an elemental deck. Like, all these incarnations can just be put into elemental decks, which have Smoke Braider, which is an incredible 2-mana ramp creature. So I think Subtlety, you know, the power of free.
Yeah, power free is definitely a thing. Like, you know, I guess when we get to the overrated, I'll give my take, my different take.
Sure, let's move on to the overrated.
Yeah, so, well, you know, as I've said a couple times at this point, mine's Subtlety. So the reason, you know, like the counter argument, at least the one the reason I believe that this card isn't, you know, 0 mana cards, very good. No argument there. But with this one, it's just, I can't think of a scenario where I just want this card. Like, it just doesn't do enough on either side to be really let me put an example. So if I'm evoking this card for a card and what deck in Modern do I really need to so direly counter a creature or planeswalker spell that I'm willing to force of will myself in order to, or not even not even counter it, but just put it back. So if it's this direly important thing, I don't want to put it back on top of their deck. And if it's a Soulscar Mage or a Swiftspear, I'm this is really bad. Oh my god. The one deck where I think this card is very good against is the Primeval Titan decks, where you put their Titan on top. That's great. Awesome. You did the thing. But there is just not a whole lot of things that I'm very happy, Force of Willing to put back on top of my opponent's deck for them to cast again next turn. Cause it's you gotta, you need to be in such a specific deck to make this work. Cause it's if you want to be if you're using 0 mana, you want to be able to have get a tempo advantage of it. So do you want this in a Delver deck? A Delver style. I don't think pure Delver is playable in Modern, but a blue-red tempo-y style deck. And I'm I don't even know if that's what you want for those kind of decks. I'd rather just have something Lightning Bolt. And then on the backside, it's you're paying for, you have to hold up 4 mana for this thing. So your opponent can see it coming from just a mile away. I mean, I actually tried playing this card in blue-white control, and every single time it was in my hand. Every single time. I think I played 10 matches with it. Every single time. I'm wow, if this was Force Negation or a card that didn't 2-for-1 me to answer this card, it would be so much better. I was literally just staring down just these giant non-creature spells that I need a counter or I die, and I just have this Subtlety in my hand. I'm wow, this is just miserable. Oh man. And yes, it's good if you can snag a 3 to 4 mana thing with this, whether you evoke it or not, either way, very good. but I just don't think that's where Modern's at. I really don't. So maybe I'll be shown the light what deck really wants this, but I can say Control doesn't. I don't think Control wants this. So
I don't think Control wants it either. I think that blue-red tempo does.
Yeah.
I think a Delver-style deck wants this. And it is worth mentioning, Subtlety does counter all the other elemental incarnations. So if your opponent tries to do grief shenanigans or tries to get you with Sword to Plowshares, Subtlety does get them. Which then you're even on cards, which depending on how prevalent these elemental incarnations get, that could be a very real thing to just have access to that you would want.
Yeah, well, it's interesting though, because they just get to do it. If it's good for them, they get to do it again next turn though. So you gotta be ready for it, like, next turn, right? Because this isn't countering, it's just putting back. Or it is countering if your opponent didn't want it again, but, it's like, obviously Aethergos is one of the best blue disruption pieces ever printed, like, in the history of Magic, so the effect of putting something on top of the deck, very good, but just on this effect specifically, I don't know, it's interesting, and like, what made the Aethergos so good is it just dealt with anything. Like this, like, in the maps you brought in, of course, like against the red-green decks, it just dealt. Like there's like, on the battlefield, gone. Spell on the stack, gone. Like, you just get it off and and it does an efficient rate. But this just doesn't really do it at a purely efficient rate on either side. Cause like on one side, yeah, you're doing it for 0 mana. That's hella efficient on mana, but you're doing it inefficient on cards. And there's the other side where you're doing it, okay, I'm getting a value up on the body for 4 mana, but then I'm doing it for 4 mana. So I don't know. We'll see. This is one I could easily be wrong on, but that's just my take.
Yeah, we shall see. I think that a card like this might cause Delver to be a thing in Modern again. We'll see.
That'd be cool, honestly. Like, I hate it in Legacy, but maybe in Modern would be alright.
Yeah. Overrated cards. I mean, initially I was feeling Murktide Region, but I know that that's wrong at this point. I've seen the results.
Yeah, people are playing it. Like, it's working. I can tell you it's not.
I can see it. I can see it happening. I'm not blind. So I guess I have a hard time picking an overrated card in blue because almost all of them are so good.
Yeah, I'll go out on a limb
good
and throw one out there.
And obvious.
What?
They're good and they're obvious.
Yeah, but I think I got one, which I could be very wrong on this, but I'll throw my hat in the ring here. So we're overrated. We got, for me at least, in my opinion, the names in this set are just like, like they are just difficult. I am trying my best, especially like that one legendary who's got the most ridiculous name ever in Magic, which I guess we'll get to. But here, I'll give it a shot. So it's Svelian of Sea and Sky. So this is a Merfolk god, 1 and 2 blue, and Svelian of Sea and Sky is indestructible as long as you control at least 2 other Merfolk. Whenever it attacks, draw a card, and other Merfolk you control ward 1. So, and it's a 3/4. So obviously, this card's hella pushed, just in terms of stats and everything. So, like, I can't tell you that this card's, like, bad for what you're paying for. Like, in a Merfolk deck, this card's, like, this card's goated. Like, this card's insane. Like, what more could you possibly want for your 3-drop Merfolk? But the reason I'm putting it on the overrated is I just don't even think this is enough to make Merfolk playable. I think Merfolk's still bad. Like, I'm sorry, Merfolk. It's not your fault, Svelian. It's really not. You're putting in the effort. Like, goodness gracious. Look at all that text on that overstated body. Like, you're really trying. I can appreciate that, but I just don't see Merfolk getting there, even with this really goated 3-drop legendary. So
you don't think that plus Rashadan Dockhand plus Tideshaper?
I'll believe it when I see it, but
they printed like 3 different cards and were like, make Merfolk good .card.
Exactly. No, they did that. They definitely did that. But I'll believe when I see it. And I have not seen the results from Merfolk. They have been doing not even like fringe. I've seen like no Merfolk, none. Show it to me. I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, Svelian, the issue with Svelian is that Svelian is, I guess it survives a sweeper.
It does, yeah.
It's the only thing that survives a sweeper if you get swept. And it does make targeting your Merfolk annoying. and it gives you card advantage. Like, it does literally everything you
Yeah,
want.
it does literally everything.
But yeah, I guess if the other merfolk don't get there, then this card will see no play. This card is good in exactly one deck, and it is as good as that deck is.
Precisely. Yeah, I had a very similar, like, overrated back when we did War of the Spark. Like, when I picked Nicol Bolas Dragon God as my overrated card, I'm like, this card's very good, but there's no home for it, and it's not going to see any play. And that was what happened. And I think Sphelian's going to suffer the same fate, where it's a very powerful card, and lots of good words on it, but Merfolk's still bad, so
You
sorry,
should have told
Merfolk.
that to all of the people I played against on Arena who just kept having Nicol Bolas avatars and then running their Grixis Nicol Bolas decks that were terrible. Every single one of them. Garbage. And they just wouldn't stop.
I did it too, but I can tell you candidly it was bad. But I did it because I liked it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, play it if you
Look,
like.
they
Merfolk,
had their
just
Nicol
play it.
Bolas avatar. They knew what they were about.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum. If you want to go play Nicol Bolas Dragon God, or you want to play Svelli in your Merfolk deck, you do that. And you
enjoy it. You have a good
enjoy
time.
it. Have fun. This is what Magic's all about. Play what you want to play. Like, don't listen to me. Prove me wrong. Like, actually though, like, play Merfolk. Win with it. Show me how dumb I am. Like, I'm ready.
What do you think is an underrated blue card?
Ooh, there's a couple that are like, could be, but it's like, I don't know. Like, we can, yeah, like there could, like, the counter, like, not, obviously not like counter spell. Like, it could be Thought Monitor. Like, that card could be very good. It could be this, like, new counter spell as, like, a way to break control mirrors, which, let me find the name of it, but it's like the one that has the replicate where you, like, I know exactly what it does, but
It is Lose Focus, which is 1 and a blue for an instant, Replicate for a blue, and then counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. So
yeah, that's
Replicate is basically every time you pay the Replicate cost, you copy the spell, and you can choose new targets for the copies. And you can pay Replicate as many times as you can. So if, there's 5 spells in the stack you need to counter, you can pay, 1 and, I guess, 4 blue to cast Lose Focus and replicate it 4 times and target each of those spells. So it's a scalable counterspell, like it's and it's target spell, there's no other restrictions, so it's kind of mana leak, and then you could scale it up to be kind of cancel if you need to make it 4, it scales up and yet still has the efficiency of a mana leak.
Yeah, like, it's a bit, what I like about it, the reason I'm even, like, bothering to mention it, like, I don't think this card's gonna see a ton of play, but, like, the fact that it could see, like, maybe a little bit, is that you can just, like, hit every single spell in the stack and your opponent's just, doomed in the counter war. So there's something to be said for that. Or, yeah, but again, I'm not sure. Like, it's like, I don't think I have strong enough convictions about any of these cards that I'm rattling off here. So, like, they could, but they also could just, like, if they saw literally 0 play, and then, like, I would not be that surprised.
So for me, and this is a card I feel pretty strongly about, Suspend.
Oh, okay.
Blue for an instant, exile target creature and put 2 time counters on it. If it doesn't have Suspend, it gains Suspend. So Suspend is basically, blue has never had 1 mana exile target creature. Even if it has this time counter clause, so it comes back in 2 turns, for tempo decks, 1 mana get rid of a thing for 2 turns might as well be 1 mana get rid of it in a lot of cases. Exiling the creature, even though it will come back with haste in 2 turns, there are a lot of creatures that once you get rid of it, a lot of the threat goes away. Your modular cards, when they come back, they will come back with just the modular trigger. They won't come back with whatever you put on them. Your Murktide Regents will come back as 3/3s. They will not come back with all their counters. There are a decent number of cards that getting rid of them and basically blinking them does real nasty things to them. And then on top of that, if you're, a Delver style deck, maybe you're a red-blue tempo-y deck, Suspend just buys you a lot of time to mess with your opponent.
Yeah.
And you can use it as a blink on your own stuff too.
Yeah, I think my favorite in that regard is you can exile your own Valky and then bring it back as a Tybalt. So There's something to be said for that. But Yeah, it's definitely, this card's definitely kind of competing. There's like a few spots that kind of do that blue tempo-y get it out of here thing. Like I think Vapor Snag is kind of the most direct competition. There's also Dismember too,
Yep.
which is very similar. Well, not very similar, but similar enough.
Hit yourself for 4 is a lot.
It is, hitting yourself for 4 is a lot, but you know, when you're in that tempo deck, the idea is, you know, you got the front foot, so you're taking that life on the chin, but you know, you're getting the tempo from it, and that's okay. But yeah, no, it's definitely, I think it's I don't know, yeah. I didn't want to put it on my underrated card because I wasn't sure, but I can definitely see where you're coming from when the card's very, and also, I don't know, there's like some stuff you can do with like Teferi Time Raveler, so they just never get it back, so, you know, we'll see. We'll see.
You can always Teferi them, and I mean, Delay was a card that I really enjoyed from Time Spiral Block, which was 1 in a blue, counter target spell, put 3, suspend it 3 basically for 2 mana. So I like Suspend. I think that in a tempo deck, it could find a home, and you know, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if it snuck into sideboards here and there to deal with decks that just play big dopey creatures that you can tempo out.
Yeah. Could be. It's definitely a high power. 1 mana, 0 mana spells, right? That's where it's at.
So moving on to black, what's the best card in black and why is it Grief?
Yeah, Grief's pretty good because, you know, you take the card from their hand for 0 mana and like it lets you do a bunch of other broken stuff. But black's pretty juiced this time around. Like there's a lot of really good black cards. So
sure.
Yeah, like black's got a lot.
So you do Grief, I'll do Persist, or do you want to do Persist and I'll do Grief?
Oh, I had a different like really, really good, there's a lot of really good black cards. Like we're not going to get to them all, I don't think, but yeah, Grief's very good. I'm happy doing Grief, or if you want to do Grief, whatever you want to do. Card's very good though.
Sure. Go ahead with Grief, I'll do Persist, because I think that's the second best, and then there's some other competitors.
There's some goated ones that, but Grief, what makes Grief so good? Like, again, we've talked 0 mana spells, like, you know, we talked that one to pieces, so I won't dredge it up for the third time here, but Grief is also, so I guess I'll say what the card does. So it's 2 and 2 black, so 4 mana total for a 3/2 with Menace. And when it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, and that player discards that card. So it's a Painless Thoughtseize, and it has Evoke, so exile a black card from your graveyard. So if you ever play Legacy, very similar to Unmask, where you can look into their hand for 0 mana, take a card, and they don't have that card anymore. This one's really backbreaking with Ephemerate. Like, if you go turn 1, evoke this guy and Ephemerate it and take 2 cards from their hand, and then on your upkeep take a 3rd card from their hand, you have a 3/2. It's going to be really hard to come back from that. And I know people are kind of brewing around with that deck. I don't know where that deck's at right now or if it's even good enough, but that is a pretty busted opener in a vacuum. So very powerful. And then, you know, the back end of just 4 mana 3/2 take a thing, it's a decently good effect. Like, it's like a Thought Knot Seer. It's a little bit smaller, but it has evasion. The card's gone forever, no matter what happens to the Grief. I remember Sam Black in his article actually wrote about how this card used to be 3 mana, and he's like, can we not make this a thing with Unearth? So, you know, thanks, Sam. Sam, you know, I think I sent you that meme, you know, where it's like all the broken stuff Wizards was going to do with Modern Horizons 2 and just Sam Black just getting in front.
Yeah, there's a lot of Caracas was going to be in the set at one point.
Doomsday. They were thinking of putting Doomsday in the set. Yeah, then we would have plenty to talk about with Black. So, thank goodness that didn't happen. But yeah, Grief's really good. Play great Grief when especially if you do stuff with Vengevines. It's like, you know, with things dying. Like this card is way in home in all these creaturey, graveyardy, shenanigansy decks. So I guess Bridge from Below is banned, but you know.
Yeah. But other than that,
all those annoying decks and, you know, 0 mana disruption, pretty good. So yeah, card's very good.
Yeah, so for me, Grief, I think it just has the most broken potential for openers. But another really powerful card is Persist, which is 1 and a black for a sorcery. Return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. So it kind of pays homage to the Persist mechanic from Lorwyn. And it's the cheapest reanimation spell in Modern. It's 2 mana cheaper than any of the other reanimation spells that are unbounded like this. Like, you can reanimate any non-legendary creature.
Well, non-legendary is a pretty big bind, I would argue. But
It is, but like most of the other cheap reanimation spells are like reanimate until end of turn, reanimate only legendary creatures, they gain haste, and then exile them at end of turn. Reanimate things that cost 3 or less. Like, this is the only one that is unbounded on cost. It's bounded by non-legendary, so you can't get Gristlebrand. Sorry, you can't do legacy reanimator stuff.
I can't even imagine that. You just go like Grizzlebrand turn 2, grief your opponent. Then grief would be nuts. Oh my god.
But in this set, they printed Unmarked Grave, which is 1 in a black, search your library for a non-legendary card, put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle. So they gave you the 2-card combo. Like, hey, what should you do? You should go turn 2 Unmarked Grave, and then what should we search for? Well, let me just look through the card file here, because why should I have to think about what I should reanimate in my reanimator deck? Let's go ahead and see. Did they print a good card? Oh, dang. It looks like they did. Archon of Cruelty, which is 6 black for a 6/6 flyer. Archon, not a legendary creature. Whenever Archon of Cruelty enters the battlefield or attacks, target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, discards a card, and loses 3 life. You draw a card and gain 3 life. So they assembled the deck for you. It's yet to be seen whether this deck is good enough, but Entomb my 6/6 flying, 4 for 1?
Yeah.
And then reanimate it the next turn, is pretty darn powerful.
Yeah, it is. That combination is definitely a powerful thing you can be doing, but, well, yeah, it's modern. I honestly don't even think it's it's definitely not too good, but it's just something you can do.
No,
yeah.
I mean, as long as you're understanding that Modern's a broken format that is not meant to play like Magic, it's just all the most degenerate, strategies all banging up against each other, barely interacting, and then control players who just insist on playing counterspells.
Hey, they gave us literal counterspell this time. Counterspells are good. Counterspells are really good now in Modern.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're consenting to that, this is yet another broken thing you can do.
Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of ships passing in the night, but there's a lot of ways you can interact in the Modern format, I'd say right now. There's a lot of ships passing in the night though, so I'll give it, yeah.
This is a different ship. This is a ship that falls into Graveyard Hate, and right now the best things that it can reanimate don't end the game on the spot, so maybe it's worse than Through the Breach.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's yet another assemble your 2-card combo, win the game off your 2-card combo sort of thing.
Yeah.
In this case, it's out of the graveyard instead out of your hand. So moving on to overrated black cards. Do you have any?
Yeah, this one makes me really sad because I was so excited for it when it first came out, but I couldn't make it work. It made me super, super duper sad. So I'm going to go with Damn, which, brings a tear to my eye saying it because I love it. It's 2 black for destroy target creature. A creature destroys but it can't be regenerated. Then Overload for 2 and white. So the Overload's essentially Wrath of God, the way they worded it. And the front end is 2 black mana sorcery to kill a creature. It can't be regenerated. That is the most efficient rule spell they have ever printed. But it's there's just not a home for it. Black, and white is just too much. The mana is too much. You can't do it. Or you can, but your mana just gets too strained because
but you want to play Counterspell also, which is blue.
Yeah, and Cryptic Command, which is blue. It's too much. My 4 mana, I can't take. If we get an Esper Triumph, all bets are off. Then we can make this work. But until that happens, the mana is just not good enough. And if you're trying to play a control deck without blue, I salute you, but good luck with that, Obzon control, we playing some Siege Rhinos, is that the plan with this card?
I mean, you could just play Orzhov control. Just the 2 colors it is.
I guess you could, yeah. This card's really good in Orzhov control. Yeah, it's cool.
That very real deck.
Yeah, that very, very playable Magic the Gathering deck that totally wins tons of matches. I'm so sad, because this is one of the cards I was the most excited for coming out of this set. And I was really hoping I could make it work, but the mana is just, it's black. If it was one in a black, this card would be beyond. But obviously that's why they costed it black, because it would be too good at one in the black, I think. But yeah, it is what it is. Like hopefully we get that Esper Triumph soon, then we can make it work. Or I don't know. Like, yeah, I guess that's what we're waiting on. We just need the Esper Triumph. Why do they give the Triumphs to only wedges anyway? I don't know.
Well, they just haven't gotten around to printing the rest of it.
Yeah, that's the reason. They'll eventually print it, and then I think so. This one's, I guess, watch out for it, I guess, when that happens. So,
Yeah, I mean, overrated for me. Like, a lot of these black cards just push the roof. It's hard to even pick one that's, like, overrated.
Yeah.
I guess Magus of the Bridge
yeah.
It's black for a 4/4 human wizard. Whenever a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. When a creature is put into the opponent's graveyard from the battlefield, exile Magus of the Bridge. So I've seen people trying to put it in Collected Company. I've seen people try to play Mono Black Devotion. And this card is definitely powerful. I mean, it's based on a card that's banned in Modern, Bridge from Below. But the thing about Bridge from Below was that you discarded it and you never paid any mana for it, and it just gave you the effect for free. Magus of the Bridge, you need to cheat into play or pay a very restricted mana cost to cast fairly. And I think that it's much worse to have this card be castable and have to, go into play when your opponent, just one of their creatures dying takes it out.
Yeah, why did Bridge from Below cost black? I never figured that out. Was that like a flavor thing? Or
I mean, you should never have cast it.
No, that's my point. Like, why did they choose such a weird casting cost for a card that was never intended to get casted?
I don't know. There were a lot of weird choices made in Future Sight.
True. That's very fair. So, yeah.
Because coming up soon after that was, what was the old version of Devotion?
Oh, like Chrome something?
Chromia.
Like, something like that. Like from Lorwyn.
Yeah, it was black for that because Shadowmoor was after Time Spiral.
Oh. That's
there you go.
Yeah.
It was 3 black pips.
I guess that's about as good as an explanation as I could have hoped for. So, yeah, fair enough.
It could cost anything. Might as well make it cost a very useful thing for another mechanic.
Yeah, maybe they made it as maybe they made it so hard to cast so you didn't accidentally ever cast it.
Yes. Don't do this.
Don't cast this card. Do not cast this card.
Yeah, so, I mean, Magus of the Bridge has some power to it. It can enable similar broken things to Bridge from Below, but being a creature, it's vulnerable to removal. It doesn't get the free effect. Like, the whole thing about Bridge is that you just put it in your graveyard and it just gave you value. At least it's overstated, but in Modern 4/4 for 3 is actually not that overstated. So.
Yeah, it also does not play well in combat because your opponent can block with anything, and then when that thing dies, your guy dies too. So, it's kind of closer to a 4/1, but I guess it doesn't die to bolt, so it's not quite a 4/1, but you know what I mean.
Yep, they needed to give it a bolt-proof butt because every card that sees play in Modern needs to cost 1 or be immune to bolt.
Yeah. Or like Snapcaster Mage where it's like, okay, you bolted it, whatever, I don't care.
Or you get the value even if it gets bolted.
Yeah.
What do we think is an underrated black card?
Oh man, honestly, like all these, I feel like all the black cards have been either, I guess besides Dam, which is, I think I like that as an overrated, but all these cards are good. Like Torok's good. I'm not like, but people are people sleeping on Torok?
I don't think so.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah, because that would have been an easy one if people are sleeping.
Are people sleeping on Dothy Voidwalker?
No, they are not.
Okay.
I think people are honestly overhyped about that card. Like, it's obviously very good, but like, when this card came out, everyone like lost their minds. And I'm like, guys, it's a 2-mana 3/2. Let's calm down here. It dies to bolt. Like, for 2 mana. Like, it's good. It's very good even, but like, let's bring it down. Let's take it down a notch, Like, it's not gonna get banned in any formats or anything like that. So,
Yeah. I think that's fair. Like, a lot of the best cards in black people are building around braids. People are throwing Torok into everything that can afford it. Persist, Profane Tutor is definitely seeing play. And then the cards that aren't seeing play just aren't very good.
Yeah, like no one's like saying, "Oh, Legion Vanguard should be seeing play," and it's not. So like,
Yeah, no one's out here going Necrogoyf.
Yeah, no, like I don't think and that they should be casting Necrogoyf.
Yes. No one's like Patriarch's Bidding should be playable.
Yeah, we should be playing Patriarch's Bidding. Well, the art's pretty sweet. I like the art.
It is very sweet, and as someone who remembers when Patriarch's Bidding was very, very good. It'd be cool if it was good, but it's not.
Yeah.
Moving on to Red. Red, I don't think that I can just say is the Elemental Incarnation necessarily, because it's one of the more limited Elemental Incarnations. Not to say that it's bad, but you just can't play it in every single deck.
No, you can.
So, Kyle, what do you think is the best Red card? And why is it Ragavan Nimble Pilferer?
Yeah.
Pilferer.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the best Red card. Like, you just look at a card like this and it's like, all right, how many lines of text we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines of text on a 1 minute 2/1. Okay, that's probably pretty good. But let me actually go into it. So Ragavan Nimble Pilfer, 1 red, very important. Costing 1 red, extremely important to why this card's so good. And it's for a 2/1, as I said. And it's whenever Ragavan Nimble Pilfer deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token and exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card. So it's not play. So if you hit a land, the exiling part doesn't do anything. But so what makes this card ridiculous is it costs 1 mana, and you basically have to answer it, or you don't just lose, but you just get kind of buried in like a snowball of value. Like, even if you're just always missing with this card makes a treasure every time it hits you. Oh yeah, it also has dash. My apologies. It also has dash.
You forgot about a lot of text.
Because, it needed more text, obviously. So, you can, and for people who don't know, dash is the Mardu mechanic back from from Fate Reforged and Dragons of Darkyear. So, dash is you pay the dash cost. So, the dash cost here is 1 to red. If you pay a spell for its dash cost, the creature gains haste, and then you return to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So this card's always getting. So that means this card even is good going late, because you can immediately attack with it and get some value off it right away, even in the late game, which is ridiculous for a 1-drop. And you play this on turn 1, and if your opponent doesn't answer it, even if you're always missing off the exiling, which is just not going to happen, you're not always going to miss, you're still just generating an insurmountable mana advantage and fixing your mana at the same time. It's like Deathrite Shaman, but it like does both like the drain mode and the mana mode at the same time. Like, yeah, you have to hit them with it, but like you put it in a deck where you make sure you hit them with it, or like they are forced to answer it. Like, yeah, like if they have a 3/3, sure, okay, fine, whatever. But like, you play it in a lightning bolt deck. You bolt the 3/3. You attack with your Ragavan. You get a treasure. You get one of the cards. Like, this card is so goated. It's like, actually, I don't know why they printed it. Like, I don't know if it's gonna get banned, but it's definitely gonna make playing against Delver and Legacy about twice as miserable, because the draws where they get their 1-drop are just infinitely more painful than the draws where they don't get their 1-drop. And now, rather than just having 4 1-drops, they have 7 to 8. So. Thanks for that.
Ragavan is a snowball. He's a 1-mana creature that if you don't answer it, he will bury you in free mana, and potentially your own cards. And he gives you, I can't stress enough how important it is to have extra mana in Modern, and how backbreaking having extra mana is. Finding extra ways to use resources and giving you extra resources is it's the name of the game in a lot of cases. And I think this plus Delver might make Delver a deck in Modern.
Maybe, yeah. Like,
depending on how it's constructed.
Yeah, it can't be like a purely Legacy style Delver, but like a blue-red tempo-y with like permission and cheap threats like Ragavan. Absolutely, I could definitely see that being a good deck. But it's just so ridiculous. How, like, I don't know. Like, I just looked at this card and I'm like, really? Like, did they just make this? Is this like a thing? I don't know. It's like,
And
cause we
yet,
see effects like this all the time at 2 mana. Like 2 mana, like, and they're good effects. Like, for example, Dreadhorde Arcanist is a fairly similar effect, or like even Dark Confidant, somewhat similar at 2 mana. But cutting, it's like comparing, it's like, yeah, when you cut the cost from 2 to 1, it's just a whole different ball game. Completely, like you compare the card Prophetic Prison, which is not playable in any format, to Arkham's Astrolabe, which is banned in Legacy. So, like, this is what cutting the cost from 2 to 1 does. It is unbelievably massive. Like, this card is so good.
yeah, I mean, compare this card to Robber of the Rich, and you can see the difference.
Yeah, this card's just like better than Rob. Like, if this card costed 2 mana, I guess the haste on Robber is pretty good, but like,
Yeah.
You know, this has like pseudo haste because it costs 1 less. But
yeah, so I think Ragavan, it might be the best card in the set. It's very, very good.
It's very good.
It doesn't go in burn, which is, or at least it doesn't go in burn in high numbers, I don't think, but maybe it's good enough to see play even in high numbers in burn.
No, I don't even know where it's going to see play in Modern. Like, it will. I just don't know what deck wants it. But Legacy, this guy, like, Blue Red Delver's like, welcome to the team. Like, yo, this guy on turn 1, then you daze their first play, and you attack, and you make the treasure, and you're just like, let's go.
and they have Brainstorm because it's Legacy.
Yeah, and all the spells are really cheap, so Ragavan's hit rate is absurdly high.
Yeah, so I think that in Modern it might be a similar thing, and this is another card whose play pattern I just hate. Like, turn 1, answer this thing, or you get buried in value, is just a miserable way to play a game.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
And it's not even like Delver where maybe it doesn't flip, or at the end of the day it's just a 3/2 flyer. Yeah. Like, it's just a clock. It doesn't do anything special. It's just a very fast, efficient clock. Ragavan buries you in value too.
Yeah, like, for crying out loud, we just banned Dreadhorde Arcanist and Legacy, guys. So do we learn? Like, this is the same thing. It's not the same, but like, you know.
It's very close. What do we think is an overrated red card?
I'm gonna go with Imperial Recruiter. I know. It was like, it sees play in Legacy. It does things in that format, but paying 3 mana for a tutor, even if you get a 1/1 off of it, I'm not even saying it'll see no play, but like, I am not excited to put this card in my deck. Like, not in the slightest. Like, who even want? Like, humans? I don't think humans wants this. I'd rather play Militia Bugler in humans, and like, cause that card's a 2/3 with Vigilance rather than a 1/1. Like, I don't even know what deck I want this in, but it's like, you know, it's a big flashy mythic reprint, so, you know, people are all excited about it, but if this sees play, I'll be surprised.
2 in red for a 1/1 human advisor. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a creature card with power 2 or less, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle. Imperial Recruiter basically just exists to do unfair things. So, you know, maybe there's a creature-based combo that Imperial Recruiter enables.
Maybe.
But that's what it would need to be.
Yeah. I don't see, like, what deck it would be, and, like, what, like, the decks in Legacy to play is just, like, I don't know. I don't think it's good. I just don't think it's good. We'll see, though.
Yeah, so for me, I don't know that there's a lot of cards that I see here that are overrated, really. Most of them seem to be properly rated. I guess maybe Obsidian Charmaw?
Yeah, like,
I have seen people talk about that card. So it's 3 red for a 4/4 flying dragon. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each land your opponent controls that could produce colorless mana. When Obsidian Charmaw enters the battlefield, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. The decks that this generally hates on are Tron and the like. And Charmaw, even if they went Tron piece, it's too late for your Charmaw, right? So they would have to go Tron piece, and then you Charmaw on 3 because you were on the play.
Yeah, like, if you're on the play, it's actually fast enough, but if you're on the draw, it's
not.
So.
And isn't that the same problem that, like, every hate card against Tron has? That it works on the play and not on the draw?
Yeah.
For the most part?
Yeah, it kind of is. I do think this card has a chance of seeing play, but like it's good because like it fits really well in like those red greeny Ponza lists. So like if you're doing like turn one Manadork into turn two this, which is actually something you can do on the draw, I think that can be like devastating. So I think specifically in red green Ponza, this will probably see play, but
I
outside of that.
I mean maybe, but they ain't playing Avalanche Riders.
Like, this card's a lot better than Avalanche Riders. There's no Echo here. This is a 4/4 with flying that costs less than Avalanche Riders. Like,
I mean, it sometimes costs less than Avalanche Riders, and sometimes it costs more than Avalanche Riders, and Avalanche Riders gets any land.
well, like, you're not playing this in the main deck, and
Yeah, that's true.
like, I'm
I
talking
don't
about the
think this.
sideboard.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see that I want this against it. Tron's the only deck that this really destroys, right?
Like there's Tron and there's also E-Tron, and also I'm pretty sure it can do things against a lot of these like Landsy decks that are like, Urza Saga is seeing a lot of play right now. So like the Urza Saga decks, you can kind of like attack them a little bit. I don't know if you'd bring it in against, you could bring it in against the, what's it called? Oh yeah, against the primetime decks. I think it's good enough against those decks because they do have it's not amazing though against primetime. They do have a decent amount of colorless generating lands, so you could make an argument to bring it in there. But like,
yeah, I'm afraid that this card is like, it does the thing if you're on the play or you have a mana dork against Tron, but the modern format now is so dang wide that I don't know that I would want a piece of counterplay in my sideboard that's this narrow.
yeah, maybe not, but I don't know.
Maybe you just really want, hey, if you really hate Tron,
yeah,
this is there for you.
I dislike Tron.
Which most people do.
Yes. Honestly, I don't know. I still, like, man, it's a 5-mana 4, like, at worst, this card's a 5-mana 4/4 that destroys a land, because everyone's playing non-basics at this point.
Yes,
like, at least
it will always get a land.
Yeah, it'll always hit a land. So, like, man, if that's too narrow, that's kind of crazy. But
I mean, but isn't it though?
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, dang, that's like kind of nuts that we've gotten to this point. So, like, that's too narrow. But,
so, what do we think for underrated?
Oh man, like, are there even this time around? Like, I don't know. I don't even know if like Bloodbraid Mauler is even good, so I don't want to call it underrated. Like, yeah, I don't think there's really.
I don't think that card's underrated. I think it's very good.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's obviously Cascade's a powerful keyword. Cascade, like,
Yes.
like Delirium's a very restrictive keyword, so I guess you can, it's probably good. Like the Dragon Rage. Oh, I guess, but people are playing Dragon Rage. That card's not underrated. Dragon Rage is Channeler. Like, that card's also very good, and also a Delirium card, so,
Yep, that card is also very good. Strike It Rich is very good. Flame Rift, I don't think anyone has any illusions about. Goblin Bombardment, absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if there's any card I definitely want to... I'm going to shout out Mind Collapse.
Mind Collapse, huh?
3 and a red. If it's your turn, you may sacrifice a mountain. Rather than play this spell's mana cost, Mind Collapse deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker.
Ah, yes. That card... You think this card's going to see play? I don't know.
Not necessarily, but I think that you should look at it occasionally and think about, hey, do I want a free removal spell?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It is like kill it. It's like kill a thing, like kill most things. Like,
kill most things. Kill most planeswalkers
things.
that need dying. Kill most creatures that need dying. I don't know that it's amazing, but it is free. And, if you're playing mountains, sometimes you just remember this card exists.
Yes, I'm 100% with you there. Like, it's, red's a good color to have free spells in, like red and blue. Those are the ones you want with all the prowessy guys. So, yeah, good.
And it's an instant.
It is an instant.
It does the lava spike thing. Sack a
Yeah,
mountain, trigger prowess.
Yeah. It's a good thing to do with red cards.
All right, moving on to green. What do we think is the best green card? And it is almost certainly not the Elemental Incarnation.
Really? Oh, I was going to slam dunk this one. Oh, wow. Okay. It's interesting. I like that we have different opinions. I think it makes
You think it's Endurance?
I do think it's Endurance. Absolutely.
Oh, really?
I think it's almost certainly Endurance. I think Endurance is so good. Like this card, because it's like unlike all the other incarnations, this is just something I'm pretty cool casting on rate. And maybe I'm just a little hyped about this in Legacy, but like with Endurance, this card, like having the incidental graveyard hate and the 3/4 body with flash and reach is just like chef's kiss. Exactly, pun intended, 'cause that's a card in the set too.
Yeah,
exactly
not chef's kiss.
What you want against these stupid Delver decks, because they actually have the traditional builds, or the way Delver is being built right now, they have no ways of cleanly or efficiently dealing with, besides daze, because everything gets dazed if you have no mana up, but besides that, a clean or efficient way to deal with a 3/4 flash reach threat that is green. Like their best ways are just like you block with it and then they bolt it afterwards. And this thing can eat a Delver. It eats almost, besides the Murktide region, this card eats basically every Delver threat that is seeing play right now. And there's still, So this card, and also just being able to incidentally just put this in your deck and you just never lose to a graveyard deck ever again. This card is really good. Really, really good.
So it's 1 green for a 3/4 flash reach. When it enters the battlefield, up to one target player puts all the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order and evoke, exile a green card from your hand.
Yep.
I guess my issue with it is that I don't think a 3/4 flash reach on rate, it's fine, but it's not busted for Modern or anything.
Oh yeah, busted maybe not be the right word. But
you can put it into your main deck and not be embarrassed. You can put it into your sideboard and not be embarrassed. As a graveyard hate card purely, it's not that much better than Fairy Macabre.
No, it's not. But what I think the Fairy Macabre is literally unplayable most of the time when you play it. So this card is far from unplayable.
And 3 means you're probably going to be able to get the effect plus the body more often than some of the other elemental incarnations.
Yeah.
Dang, I should have said the underrated card for red was Fury.
Fury, really? I don't know if that card does see play. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that card sees play. Have you ever been Pyrokinesis? 0 mana, deal 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers. Humans, what do you do?
Yeah, no, you're right. It'll see play, but
it just dies. Mono red aggro. This kills your Swift Spear and your Goblin Guide, please.
Yeah. No, you're right. It'll definitely see play. You're right.
3 red, 3/3 double strike.
It's just where do I put it? Right? What's the deck that I'm putting this in? That's what
you put it in your sideboard because you have red cards in your deck and you want to kill aggro decks.
That's reasonable. It could be an aggro mirror thing. I could see that.
It could be an aggro mirror thing. It could be a Delver thing. It could be a big red thing. It could be you just need enough red cards in your deck to be able to do this. And against a lot of very aggressive decks, in fact, it doesn't have flash, so it can't completely blow them out that way. But against a lot of just small creature decks, just fury them. This is the only one of these cards that's a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1.
Yeah. No, 0 mana cards that can be a 2-for-1, kind of offset the pitch cost. Force. That's what made Force of Vigor so good. They're very they're very good.
This is the only one that can.
You're
do
right.
That.
It is. Well, not necessarily. You could make a scenario where Endurance could also be that, where your opponent spent a bunch of cards filling up their graveyard with a bunch of shit, and then you just bye. But yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I wasn't originally, but now you definitely convinced me.
And Endurance, my only argument against Endurance is that I think that it's a solid rate. I think it's going to see a lot of sideboard play. If you're a green deck that wanted to hate on graveyards, this is probably now the best way to do it. I just don't love... I don't know. Yeah, I think it's too narrow.
I don't know. Really, the context of Legacy, maybe Modern, but even then I'm still not sure. But in context of Legacy, this is literally exactly what you want, I'm pretty sure. Because I've already made my case about why I like it against Delver. But against the control decks right now, all the control decks are just playing stupid Uro. So you just play this card, and this is one of the only good answers to Uro in the format. There's no other good answers.
Yeah, and it kills Reanimator dead.
Oh yeah.
I think in Legacy this is a much better card than it is in Modern. I just think in Modern it's your graveyard answer if you're playing green cards. Every deck has a graveyard hate card or two in their sideboard in Modern because it's Modern.
Yeah.
That's always going on. And if you're green, now you get to play this.
Yeah.
And it replaces your, Graph Digger's Cage or your,
surgical perhaps.
surgical.
I think it's very surgical. But yeah, I do think this card's, it's definitely better contextually in Legacy, but I think it'll, as you said, sideboard, you put in your sideboard against decks that care about your graveyard, and this card will make them sad if you're playing green and you're against graveyard, so.
Yep. Yeah. So my best card in green goes to Ignoble Hierarch.
So it's a good one.
Which is 1 mana for a 0/1 Goblin Shaman, Exalted. So whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and then you can tap to add black, red, or green. So it is the mirror image of Noble Hierarch, a eternal playable card, incredibly good. This plays better in Jund, because Noble Hierarch was Bant colors. I just think that this card, it does everything you want if you're Jund colors instead of Bant colors. Like, now you have a premium 1 mana, mana producer in almost any color combination that includes green. Outside, we already had Birds of Paradise, but Ignoble Hierarch's Exalted means that it can attack. It can also pump up. It can functionally get into combat by giving Exalted to your creatures that you actually want attacking. And I think Jund colors are just better than Bant colors in most cases.
Yeah.
Modern.
Yeah. Well said. Like, I don't know why this card exists. Like, not that I have a problem with it existing. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know. Like, the whole idea of Exalted was it was like Bant's mechanic. And like, Jund is like about as thematically opposite as Bant as you can literally get. So, I don't know. It's fine. Whatever. Like, Noble Hierarch's very good. And this card's literally Noble Hierarch that taps for red, black instead of blue, white. So this card's obviously going to be very good. Like, enough said. Like,
totally. What do we think is an underrated card in green?
Yeah.
Overrated.
Overrated. This is an easy overrated for me. Like, Titania, Protector of Argoth is what I'm going with. So, 5 mana, 5/3, legendary creature elemental. When Titania enters the battlefield, you return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then whenever a land you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you create a 5/3 green elemental creature token. So this card saw a little play in Legacy, so people were pretty hyped up to see it coming into Modern. And also sees tons of Commander play too. Like, Commander, don't get
That's where
started.
It's from.
Yep, that is where it's from originally. So, tons of play in Commander, a little play in Legacy. So it's like, and they're like, oh wow, there's already kind of land strategies in Modern. Like, you have fetch lands and like Prime Time. Wow, this card fits perfectly. But like, no, it like doesn't fit perfectly in those decks. This card just like, man, imagine playing a 5 mana creature that dies to Bolt in Modern. Good luck with that. Like, I salute you, but, I don't think you're going to get very far with that strategy. Like, 5 mana is a ton. You need your 5 mana cards in Modern to, like, take your opponent and, like, smack them around, Like, we can't just have, like, a 5/3 that makes, like, another 5/3 and gets you a land. Like, yeah, you can do some busted stuff with this if, like, your opponent doesn't do anything, but, like, if your opponent isn't doing anything and, like, they're not winning the game by turn, like, 5, like, what do they do? Or like, maybe not winning the game, but getting very close to winning the game by turn 5. What's going on? Are we playing Modern right now? What's going on? Where am I? So, yeah, I think this card's very overrated.
For me, I'm going to go with Gaia's Will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people are trying to build around this, but it's the suspend card for green. So it's sorcery, suspend 4 for a green. Until end of turn, you may play lands and cast spells from your graveyard. If a card will be put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, exile that card instead. So it's a color-shifted Yawgmoth's Will. And we already have through Underworld Breach, which does a lot of the same things. Yawgmoth's Will effects have not been that powerful in years. And I don't know that I want to cheat one into play, and I don't know that setting up for a turn 4 Yawgmoth's Will is where I want to be either.
Yeah, it's even turn 5 you suspend this thing on 1, which is just like a year. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I don't think this card's going to see any play, but I would love to be proven wrong, like as always. Like show.
Yeah, I don't think that playing a spell once out of your graveyard is that good anymore. You can play a lot of these spells a billion times out of your graveyard.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Precisely.
What do we think is an underrated green card?
Yeah. So for my underrated green card, I'm gonna go with the Squirrel General. No, I'm kidding. The squirrels are bad. Squirrels are bad. Don't listen to me. But actually though, underrated card, Tireless Provisioner. So it is 3 mana, 3/2, landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a food or a treasure token. So you look at this and you're like, wait a minute, this is kind of like Tireless Tracker. And you'd be right to say that, because it's very similar to Tireless Tracker, where instead of making a food, you get a choice between a food. Instead of making a clue, you get a choice between a food or a treasure token. And when I first saw this card, I'm like, this card seems terrible. But upon further examination, this card's kind of like a Lotus Cobra, because the treasure's a lot better than the food in this case. So it's like a Lotus Cobra, except you get to keep the things around forever, and it helps a lot with in your Urza kind of strategies. Because I can think of a lot of scenarios where you just need mana and you don't need cards. So, and this card can make a lot of mana, and especially with fetch lands, you can bank up a lot of mana with this card and have a really big turn. Obviously you need, or at least maybe not obviously, but I think that you need to play this in a deck that cares about making tons of artifact crap. But as time has shown us, decks that make a bunch of artifact crap have been able to be things that are good in Modern. They've proven as the Astrolabe ban in Modern speaks to, decks that put a bunch of crappy artifacts into play definitely can win matches in Modern. So will this card be super good? We'll see, but I think it's definitely got potential. It definitely could get there.
Agreed. Just making a bunch of artifacts off of your land drops, totally powerful.
Yep.
So for me, I guess an underrated green card.
You could always go with Abundant Harvest. That's the good meme, right? It's hey, this card looks pretty good. Have I seen this somewhere before?
I mean, do people not think that card's good?
No, the joke is it came out in the Mystical Archive, so it's been out for months, but it actually hasn't belonged to a set.
Oh, I did not know that.
It was like a preview thing they did for the archive, where it's they they spoiled this card, and they're and people are wait, what set's this from? And they're oh, it's from Modern Horizons 2, and it's what?
Okay. I'm gonna say Ave Progenitor Ooze.
The Progenitor, the big 5 storm guy.
Yeah, 2 green for a 2/2 storm.
Whoa.
It's a storm creature. Aeve? A-E-V-E. Aeve? Progenitor
I'm
Ooze
not going to attempt with the names in this set.
isn't legendary if it's a token, and it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other ooze you control. So, I mean, how much worse than Empty the Warrens is this?
A bit worse, because green. Right?
Yeah, so there's green. Yeah. But you can Metamorphose, you could do most of the things. I guess you can't Desperate Ritual. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, or Pyretic Ritual. Most of the rituals are not going to work so hot with IFA. But I think it's a cool card. I think it's a very cool card. Yeah.
I think it's a very cool card. It's fun. I think that the first time you ooze storm someone, you're going to remember it. And this is going to be a commander card for the most part. But I've heard no one talking about it at all, and it looks fun.
Yeah?
Looks cool. A lot of the storm cards in this set don't seem like they've gotten there.
Which I like. I don't like storm cards getting there.
Yep.
Well, actually, there is one exception. Chatterstorm is ruining Pauper right now. But yeah.
Good. You Pauper people deserve it.
Oh, they banned all the storm cards. They just released another storm card. It's what are you doing?
You fools.
You fools. They have Dark Ritual. They have Lotus Petal. They have Seething Song. What are you doing?
So yeah, I know that card will see exactly no play in Modern, but I like that they put Storm on a creature. This is the first time they've done it, and I think that's a cool way to take this. Storm Entity has existed. It got a +1/+1 counter for every spell that was cast before it this turn. I think this is a much cooler implementation of Storm on a creature.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, card's super cool. Very, I am very much looking forward to see what the commander people can put together with this, because it's an interesting commander, right? Where it's mono green, but you want to play Storm, so sure,
Very
it'll be
normal
fun.
stuff. What do we think for multicolored? Best multicolored card.
Oh, there's like multicolors. As there is with these modern Horizon sets, the multicolor is just juiced beyond belief. So there's a lot of power here in these multicolored cards. But I think for my take on the best multicolored card is, so this is the one with the big name. So I'm just going to call it Asmo, because there's no shot I'm going to be able to say that name. It is literally like the name is so long that it takes up the entire text box.
I'm going to try it.
You're good. All right.
Asmorano Mardikada Daistinakuldakar.
That
Asmo.
Yeah. That could have been right. Really, I have no clue.
This is the first creature that they've printed whose name is so long that they could not give it a mana cost.
Yep. Yeah, no, this one, so what it actually does, so yeah, it has the big old name, Asmo, no mana cost, we just said, but it has in its text box, as long as you discarded a card this turn, you may pay one black-red hybrid to cast a spell, so a red or a black mana to cast this, and it's a 3/3 creature, so it's 1 mana 3/3 if you discard a card, and then when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a card named the Underworld Cookbook, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle, so... and then you can sacrifice 2 foods to make a creature deal 6 damage to itself. So obviously, to get the concept of this card, you need to know what the Underworld Cookbook does. So the Underworld Cookbook is a 1 mana artifact with tap it and discard a card to create a food token, or pay 4 mana, tap it and sacrifice it to return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So what makes this card so good is this was kind of like the last bit of food support that the busted food cards that are still left from Eldraine kind of needed to get that last oomph. And it's obviously, this card's ridiculous on Ray. You're getting a 1 mana 3/3 that tutors up a powerful 1 mana spell from your deck and puts into your hand. And then once this card dies, you can sacrifice the cookbook to get this card back. And if you have a way to discard cards again, you can cast this card again and get another cookbook and do the same thing. Like, this card is like 1 mana, just ridiculously valid. And it just murders things if you have enough food.
Like, yeah, that was what I was going to say, is that second part, sacrifice 2 foods, target creature deals 6 damage to itself. Like, it read to me at first like flavor text.
Not
both ha 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 flavor text because they're eating food, but also, the image of they ate the food that you made and it killed them is also very funny.
Mm-hmm.
But Asmo, you just put this in a deck that, like Hollow One.
Oh, yeah.
You could put it in Dredge. I mean, you could put it in Dredge if you wanted to. Like, that has discard effects. Like, there's a lot of decks that just discard happily.
Yeah.
And this is now a 1 mana 3/3 that they just get to play that draws them a card.
Yeah, and I think this is going to birth a new archetype around it. Like, it's also really good at discarding? The Underworld Cookbook. What this card wants you to play? The Underworld Cookbook. Like, at first I wasn't sure if the Underworld Cookbook was a playable Magic card or not, but I have been shown through my leagues that the Underworld Cookbook is not only a playable Magic card, but a Magic card that deserves respect. Much like Witch's Oven, actually. It feels very similar to Witch's Oven, and that card definitely... it's maybe not in Modern as much, but definitely inspired respect in Standard all the way back to Pioneer even. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really it's an unassuming card. You think it's kind of a cute thing, but actually it's basically got Madness 1 for 3/3. Like, that's enough. It's not quite Madness 1, but it's dang close.
Yeah, it's not quite, you're right, it's not quite Mass 1, but as you said, yeah, it's really close to it, and it just gets a good spell from your deck. Like, the Underworld Cookbook, that's a spell you want early in the game. So you were just tutoring up a spell that is...
Most of the decks that are playing this are playing, you want to do this.
Like,
both the card that it fetches and Asmo itself.
Yeah. I've been seeing people just they go they use this to like, they get the cookbook and then they throw the feasting troll king into the graveyard using the cookbook, and the cookbook makes a food. They make a couple more food, like a gilded goose or like a trail of crumbs or something like that. And there's a 7/6 on turn 2 or 3 that comes back again and again. Where did I see this again? I feel like I've seen this one that's somewhere. But
that's been a problem before, occasionally.
Yeah, I feel like, big creature that comes back from graveyard repeatedly. I feel like there's some
trample.
Yeah, with trample. I've seen this one somewhere before, but I'm not saying it's as good as the aforementioned, but the concept is absolutely there.
So for me, I'm gonna go with I think an unsexy but incredibly powerful card, Shardless Agent.
Yerp.
1 green blue for a 2/2 with Cascade. When you cast 1 green blue for a 2/2 artifact creature human rogue with Cascade. So when you cast a spell, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. You may cast it without paying its mana cost. Put the exiled cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, Shardless Agent, it does all the cheaty stuff that you want to do with your free suspend cards. So I've seen Shardless Agent in a deck with Crashing Footfalls from the last Modern Horizons. Just the fact that Shardless Agent is a card that does anything other than Cascade is incredible. So many of the Cascade cards were basically do nothing except cheat into play a suspend card. This does something. And that's just so much better. The fact that it's a creature, so you can bring it back, you can flicker it, you can do a number of, flickering it doesn't work so well. You can bounce it back to your hand. Like there's shenanigans you can get into with Shardless Agent that you can't for a lot of the other cheap Cascade triggers. 3 is one of the lowest Cascade costs. So you can build a fairly normal deck and still play this card. You used to have to play Violent Outburst.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. Well, actually, it's funny how you say that, because I think Shardless Agent, what I think Shardless Agent is going to do in the modern format is it's going to give a big shot in the arm to all those like Cascade decks that they try to cascade into some like uncastable spell that's really powerful if you cast off a Cascade spell. Cause besides Violent Outburst and like people were playing Demonic Dread, like that card isn't even castable all the time. Like Shardless Agent, you can always turn 3 lands sideways and put this card on the stack, which was actually an achievement for Cascade cards, it turns out, that cost. So
Niv Mizzet Reborn also can just get you Shardless Agent.
This is true. Like I am skeptical of whether or not Shardless Agent will be good enough as just like a mid-range value card, but obviously, when you're getting back, like I know some people were I saw one person build a deck where it was like a teamer control deck, and they were using Shardless Agent just to basically cascade, and Shardless Agent and Violent Outburst to cascade into Crashing Footfalls for just like a big value play. So like they'd run like Force Negation, like their early removal, they use like Bone Crusher Giant and Brazen Borrower. So I don't know how good that is, but there's a lot of things. Shardless Agent is very powerful. So who knows where it's going to see play, but it will. It definitely will.
What do we think is an overrated multicolor card?
Oh man, they're all pretty good, but I guess overrated is like one of those things where it's like, it feels like when a card first comes out, it's like people are all over it, but then they like move on to the next thing. Cause I could say Dakon's overrated. I don't think he's that good. I could say Grist is kind of overrated. Like, I don't think that card's that good. I could even say Vindicate's overrated, but it's going to see a little play. So, there's like a bunch of cards that are kind of like at this stage where they're like pretty good, but they're definitely not going to like, hit that hard. So yeah, I feel like any of those 3 I just mentioned there are decent, but I don't again, not enough conviction to go with it.
I'm going to go with Priest of Fellrights.
Really? Okay. You were talking about that Reanimator deck though.
You're right. I think Persist is really good. I don't love Priest of Fellrights. So it's, white and a black for a 2/2. Human Warlock, tap, pay 3 life, sacrifice Priest of Fellrights, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate only as a sorcery, and then unearth for 3 white-black. So that returns this card from your graveyard to the battlefield, it gains haste, and then you exile it at the beginning of the next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield. And you unearth only as a sorcery. So I think my difference here is that Persist is an instant that you need to interact with Counter Magic or with Graveyard Hate. Priest of Felrights is a creature, a 2/2 creature that just dies to Bolt, that needs to live a turn cycle to do anything.
Wait, I'm pretty sure Persist is sorcery, right? Like, for...
Sorry, is it a sorcery instead of an instant?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, but it's a spell.
Yeah, it's a spell. Like,
instead
I get,
of
like,
a
you
creature.
can't, like, bolt it. But, yeah. And that's actually really interesting, because I feel like, no, you're definitely right. But
This
those
is the more
kinds of
powerful
decks-
reanimate effect.
Yeah, I feel like you
For
just
sure.
want, like, all, like, these are the only two mana reanimates that exist, right? So,
Yeah,
I feel like
you would probably need to play both. I'm not sure that the deck is going to get there. I do think that Persist is a stronger effect than this one. I think you need to play all four. But I just think that, I don't know that the reanimate deck's going to get there. I just think at some point it will. And they are just generically powerful cards. But I think Priest of Felrights, I just don't love, I don't know. It's slow. It's slower than the other ones. And I mean, I've seen the Persist, the reanimate deck not even get there in testing that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Persist is closer to, making reanimate good enough. Priest of Felrights, I think you're going to play it because you have to. And I think it's mostly going to catch lightning bolts.
Yeah, like, I agree with that, but the one thing I do like, it is kind of slower, but it's also kind of not, because you can just, like, you go turn 2 priest, and the turn 3 unmarked grave, put it in the graveyard, sack it, and that's, like, equally as fast, but...
My speed concern is that you need to pass the turn to your opponent after you cast it on turn 2.
This is true. You have a 2/2 that's just sitting there, like, as a sitting duck for a whole entire turn cycle, which is definitely a thing. But the one thing I do like about this card, though, is if they, like, you put your opponent in a position where they have to answer your threat on 2, and if they do answer your threat, you still have a 5-mana reanimation spell ready to go, like, later in the game, so.
Sure, and I mean, I guess you can also, you can just reanimate Priest of Felrights. There are a number of different ways to bring it back for cheap.
Yeah, Unearth and stuff like that, you mean? Or...
Unearth, what is the, it's the card from Amonkhet, the split card.
Oh, yeah, like Claim to Fame.
Claim to Fame, right.
Yeah,
so,
like...
There are effects like that. There are ways to bring back Priest of Felrights and have it do something immediately. I just don't... It's the difference between a sorcery that needs to be interacted with Graveyard Hate or counter spells versus a creature that has to survive a turn cycle.
Yeah, it's funny. I get that. I get it. I do think this card's very powerful, though. Like,
oh, it's totally powerful. Like, that you reanimate a Gristlebrand with this. You did it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It's also like, what is it? It's one of those things where, like, yeah, the front side is very easy to interact, but it's very hard to interact with the back side. Like, really hard.
If you can get to 5 mana, it gets better.
No, you're right. But, like, the thing I do like about that, though, is that, yeah, 5 mana, obviously, like, oh yeah, when you get to turn 5, whatever, but it like does something early. Like, it forces your opponent to take some amount of time, whether it be with a lightning bolt or a fatal push or, something to interact with it early. So it's not like this card's sitting in your hand doing like FA, like Titania in your hand until turn 5. This card's forcing your opponent at this turn 2 juncture. Okay, can you answer my 2/2? And if they do, it's like, all right, I guess I'll do it again on turn 5. You can't answer it then, so.
Assuming that you can get something reanimatable that's worth reanimating into your graveyard on turn 1 or 3.
Yeah. No, of course. No, like, I'm not sure if the reanimated deck will get there, but I think this card will be, if it does, will be integral to that deck. So
100%. As much as I like Persist, I don't think the deck's going to get there, but I think these cards are just abstractly powerful.
Yes.
Agreed. But I like this one slightly less, and I'm a conflicted man.
Fair enough.
What do we think is an underrated multicolor card?
Man, am I even allowed to say Territorial Kavu? Oh man,
no.
Okay, all right. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think people figured out that the 2-mana 5/5 is good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
that also filters your hand and Graveyard Hates as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We're on the same page in that. Great. All right. Well, I'll do the one that's like a little less exciting than Territorial Kavu, but like also kind of similar. The Rakdos Headliner. I think 2 mana, 3/3 haste, and then Echo, which is at the end of your upkeep, you have to pay the Echo cost, or else you sacrifice it and discard a card. So this is like, it's a very efficient, hasty beater on turn 2. And discarding a card is often not a downside, in fact an upside. Like, they literally put Madness in this set. So, and this is obviously in the Madness colors of red and black. So, like, it's not, like, you know, it is a 2-mana 3/3, which actually is not even great because it dies to Bolt. So it could not get there, but it's one of those things, like, you gotta look out for, right? Like, when if you're playing like a red-black, like, aggressively slanted, which generally red-black decks are aggressively slanted, this card's definitely a consideration. It's definitely powerful. So, yeah, I think it's a decent choice for underrated.
Sure. For me, I'm gonna go with Goblin and Archomancer. So it's green and a red for a 2/2 creature, Goblin, Shaman. Each spell you cast that's red or green costs 1 less to cast. That is one of the most open-ended cost reducers we've ever seen. It's in the Storm colors. It was clearly made to pump up the Storm deck in this limited format. And I think that there are just some cost reduction. Like, this reduces cost on creatures and planeswalkers and card types that don't usually get cost reductions on a generic rate like this.
Yeah.
So I think there are a number of cards that could become problematic 1 mana cheaper. And it also means that your Storm deck doesn't need to be blue anymore. Like, you needed Electromancer or Baral before, or you can stretch into Teamer for your Storm deck now.
You could. Yeah, this card's interesting. I don't know exactly where it fits, because as you said, like, you know, the Storm decks kind of already has like Electromancer and Baral, and like, even if you wanted more effects, you could make an argument for the new Rowan. I think is actually pretty decent. So, but yeah, it's definitely new. It's definitely unique. It's like, maybe it could be a different thing that, you know, we have green Storm cards now, so maybe that's a thing.
Speaking of Strixhaven, Grinning Ignis, the card from Future Sight that was reprinted in Strixhaven, goes infinite with Goblin and Archomancer. Infinite ETB triggers, baby! Yeah,
I was gonna say, like, he was hard. I think that one was already legal in Modern, but hey, like, that's a thing. Definitely could do it. I think I like it. I think it'll see. I don't think it'll be like a mainstay, but I think like, you know, it's one of those kind of like, you could see it in like this one deck that does the thing with it, you know?
Yeah, I think that it might get into a Storm deck. It might make a Storm deck happen that would not have happened otherwise. It might give Storm a reason to go into a third color. So I think that, you know, the more redundant you can make that cost reduction effect, the more consistent you can make Storm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, I guess like on the topic of underrated cards, I didn't know if I wanted to like bring this card up because this card's obviously very pushed. So I don't know if people are sleeping on it, but if you, in case anyone is, General Ferris Roderic's so good. Play that card. So it's 1 red-white human, hexproof and monocolored. And if you cast a multicolored spell, you create a 4/4 artifact creature token. So that was kind of like on there too for me. But like, that card's, the only reason it's like, it's very pushed. So I'm not sure if people are sleeping on it, but it's so good.
Niv Mizzet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've been seeing it. This is actually a card I think humans might want too. Because there's a lot of multicolored humans kind of just chilling in that deck. And then you just play this card and you make 4/4s off of them and then they die. So we'll see. We'll see.
I really want Yusuri Fortune's Flame to be a good card, but I don't think it is.
I want it to be too. Like, it is one of those things where it's like you attack with it and 1 out of 32 times the game is over one way or another. So that's kind of funny. Either this thing just straight up deals 10 damage to your dome, or you draw 5 cards and get an Omniscience emblem until the end of the turn. Can't imagine I can't imagine one person in those two scenarios. One person is not coming back from that.
100%.
Which I think that's funny. But, you know.
That is just a fun card. It's clearly commander targeted, but very fun.
But it's like pushed enough that like you could, because like the average result, right? Like, or I guess like the slightly above average result where you attack with this card and it draws you 3 cards and deals you 4 damage. That's pretty good. Like, I'd do that, you know, in the right matchup, of course.
Oh, totally. It's just, you know, playing a 3-mana 2/3 flyer in Modern.
Yeah. Bolt.
that needs to survive to attack to do anything cool.
Yep.
is a tough ask.
Yep.
So let's go to artifacts.
Oh yeah, there's some good ones this time around.
Yeah, we usually skip over this, but it is chock full of nuts this time.
Yeah, they don't skimp on anywhere in these modern Horizon sets.
Straight nuts.
Yeah.
What do we think is the best colorless card? I think there are at least 4 or 5 possible answers here.
Yeah, like I guess it kind of depends on like if we're I guess are we considering Urza Saga an artifact card? Because it kind of is.
I was gonna go for. I mean, are there any lands? That
Yeah, it's a
compete with
land
Urza
though.
Saga. I guess.
Like,
I guess there are lands that compete with Urza Saga.
yeah,
There's
there's
Riptide Laboratory. There's Cabal Coffers. There's Yavimaya.
I think there's the ones that compete. There's the fetch lands, but
Fetch lands. There's Power Depot.
But I do think, like, if we were to go to lands, like, yeah, I think Urza Saga is by far the best one. But if we're not considering that, because it's like, it's kind of artifact, but it's not really an artifact. So, but for like actual artifacts, like the best actual, like, it says artifact in the card type kind of thing, yeah. I think it's Cauldron Complete. Although this is one of those things, like, I guess unless we're considering the Underworld Cookbook, but I already talked about Asmo, so, I don't want to, like, repeat everything I just said again for the same reason that, Underworld Cookbook's good with Asmo and Asmo's good with Cookbook. But I do think that Cauldron Complete's a pretty substantial buff to the Stoneforge decks. Like, I know people have been talking about how it's like, oh, this card's like, I don't know if it's better than Batterskull because, like, Batterskull is lifelink. It's easier to bounce to your hand. You can actually cast it more often. I'm like, yes, all of those things you said are legitimate criticisms by this card is not always better than Batterskull. But for crying out loud, this is at worst the second best. Like the swords of X and Y are just not as good as this card. Cause like, this is like cause like Stoneforge decks, like you want to have this kind of effect, just like tutor up. This is the perfect thing to just go tutor up. Cause this card just clocks your opponent and is very difficult. And like, if your opponent isn't able to answer your Stoneforge and you want to get him dead, this card's going to do it very, very fast. So
yeah, so Cauldron Complete is 7 mana for a legendary artifact equipment, but it has living weapon. So when it comes into play, you create a 0/0 germ creature token and equip this equipment to it. It's indestructible. The equipped creature gets +5/+5, has first strike, trample, indestructible, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature.
Yeah. So your opponent's probably not answering this once it enters play. I guess they could like path the token, which is kind of a thing, but
path or bounce the token.
Or bounce it. Yeah, they could bounce it too. So there are ways, but generally speaking, this card's gonna be pretty tough to answer if you can get it in the play. And like, this card clocks. It's a 5/5 with haste that is very difficult to block because it has trample and it knocks out the creature that's blocked. And first, yes, this card's unbeatable in combat by many, many different metrics, and it has trample and it's big. So,
I mean, the first strike, you just deal 1 first strike damage to it. It exiles the creature, yeah. And then the rest of the 4 goes over top. So,
oh, is this the first strike death touch thing? Is that a thing?
I think that's how that works, right? Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, exile it.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if this is an effect that goes on the stack. So you have to like deal the damage, then it goes on the stack and then clears it.
Oh, yeah, that might be the case.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but yeah, I know what death touch.
Yeah, we can look it up, but it definitely is not chumpable.
Yeah, no, this thing's gonna trample right over all the chump block. Like this thing, if you're against a creature deck, like they are not gonna be able to get past this thing. This thing is gonna crumple, just punch right through their defenses no matter what they have. Like it has super death touch and first strike. Like they're not, and indestructible. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, sometimes you need, like, the Batterskull to stay back with Vigilance and Lifelink and keep you alive against the aggressive creatures. Like, absolutely. Like, there's definitely scenarios where you want Batterskull over this thing. But in Stoneforge decks, you run 1 Batterskull, you run 1 of these, and you run, like, 1 sword. And that's the Stoneforge package now. And you're going to be very happy to have access to this in your Stoneforge deck. Like, obviously this card isn't good enough on its own merits. It's only with Stoneforge. But with the Stoneforge, very good.
Yeah, I have not found the answer on whether it works with First Strike, Exile, Death Touch. If it works exactly like Death Touch, I'll find the answer at some point, and I'll give you that answer as soon as I do. For me, I think the best artifact in this set is, I mean, there's a couple of them. They all go in different decks is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to go with Zabaz the Glimmer Wasp.
Oh, that's
so it's 1 for a 0/0 modular 1 legendary artifact creature insect. So it comes in with a +1/+1 counter. If a modular triggered ability would put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, put that many +1/+1 counters instead. And then it has red, destroy target artifact you control, and white, Zabaz gains flying until end of turn because they needed to give it a commander identity. So the two other modes are pretty much flavor text, but for your modular deck, this is an additional copy of Hardened Scales that also is a creature that also triggers modular.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is this a 2/2 or a 1/1 when it comes in?
It's a 1/1 when it comes in. Cause, wait, is it? No, it's not 2/2. It can't be. What, with a modular? I didn't even, but it was a modular triggered ability. So I'm pretty sure modular's like triggers on death. So I'm pretty sure it's a 1. Like, but man, I was under the impression this was a 1/1, but
I think it's a 1/1.
This card would be wild if it was a 2/2. But I thought, I thought it was a 1/1.
I don't think you get both sides of the modular. I think you just get the death triggers.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. I would argue though that like that white ability is definitely not flavor text. Giving your creatures evasion in an aggro deck is definitely relevant.
I think it's relevant. I just don't know that the modular Hardened Scales decks play white.
That's true. And I guess they don't have Mox Opal, so they can't literally free roll it like they used to. But
yeah, so we'll see. I mean, it's even if it was actual flavor text, it'd be fine because the Hardened Scales deck is one of the fastest aggro decks in Modern, and it's modular. So, like, they play super well together. If you have 8 copies of Hardened Scales in your deck, you're doing it.
Yep. Yeah, they ran literal Arcbound Worker. Like, this is better than Arcbound Worker.
Exactly.
It's actually kind of
and it does trigger. It does hit its own trigger, right?
Man, we're really testing the rules knowledge now, aren't we?
I think it does. It sees itself die, right?
It definitely triggers modular, but the thing is, I'm pretty sure that like the line of text is like a passive ability. That like so when it's dead, the passive isn't there anymore. But
I think it sees itself die and
yes,
gives an extra counter.
Yeah, one thing I do know is like if you have 2 of these and play the legend rule, like you can legend rule to put a bunch of counters on the other one, which is actually kind of funny. But
yep, for sure.
But yeah, that's it, man. Modern Horizons really tested my card knowledge here.
So what do we think is an overrated artifact?
Oh, well, I'm just gonna, I don't know if anyone's actually hyped up about this. I feel like this is almost like that meme where it's like, how many times we had to teach you this lesson, old man? It's like with Soul Talisman, like we got the Mox Tantalite. I feel like we've gotten like a bunch of garbage, like artifacts that look like really good artifacts, but aren't really good artifacts. So Soul Talisman is the next in line of these. So it's a uncastable artifact, but of course it has suspend. In this case, suspend 3 for 1 colorless. And then it, but it's Soul Ring. When you play it, you tap and you add 2 colorless. So it's a Soul Ring with suspend 3. So I do not, basically, as its predecessors have shown us, these suspend artifacty thingies just aren't good. They're never good. And I don't think this one's going to be good either. So, it looks powerful, like it's a Soul Ring. Wow, look at Soul Ring. But no, I'm willing to bet this is going to see 0 play. Maybe in Commander.
Yeah. I mean, the hard part with these artifacts is they generally are just mana rocks. And if you went through the trouble of doing the Cascade thing for this card, why didn't you just Cascade into one of the spells that wins the game instead of one that makes mana? And then if you're paying for it and you're waiting for the suspend, what is this Modern deck that just gets to hang around till turn 4 to get its mana?
Yeah. Like, if it was suspend 2, I think we'd be talking. Cause like, then,
we would have a very different opinion of this.
Yeah. Cause then we're comparing this to like Search for Tomorrow, and then there's a real comparison here, and I can see it. But suspend 3, that's a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, right now we have to compare this to Lotus Bloom.
Yeah. And like you get literal Black Lotus if you want to wait 3 turns for it. So.
And it doesn't cost anything to suspend it.
Nope. No, it does not. Literal Black Lotus. Which I guess you get in this set too from the multicolored card, which we didn't even mention, but you know.
So for me, I guess, is sort of Hearth and Home going to see play?
And Commander, I'm sure, because all the swords see playing Commander.
It's
but
Sword.
In Modern?
It's good against green and white. I just don't know. Like, it flickers a creature and it gets a basic land and puts it into play. Like, there's card advantage there. I just don't, modern decks don't play the swords for the most part.
Yeah, it's a pretty crummy sword too. Like, if I'm going to play a sword, I feel like Sword of Fire Ice or Feast
Still
Famine.
Fire Ice.
Both way better. Did I not say
Feast
Fire
of
Ice?
Famine, Fire Ice.
Yeah. Feast Famine, Fire Ice, yeah. So
those are the ones you want.
Yep, those are the good ones. Like those are the ones, depending on what you're looking for, like those do what the things you want them to do. So yeah, this one ain't doing it for me. Maybe in a Soul Herder deck, but even then, I don't know.
Yeah. So what do we think in terms of underrated artifacts?
Oh, I got one for this.
Academy Manufacturer.
Yeah. I think my underrated artifact here is going to be Brainstone. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, really, seriously. But it is 1 mana for an artifact, and it has 2 and tap and sacrifice Brainstone to draw 3 cards, and then put 2 back on the top of your library in any order. So, cast Brainstorm, essentially. So, you look at this and you're like, 3 mana Brainstorm, that's terrible. And a lot of times you'd be right. But this card, it might be the missing piece to what we need to make blue-white miracles work in Modern. Because this card puts Terminus on top very quickly. And putting Terminus on top very quickly keeps you from dying a lot of the time. So between this and Jace the Mind Sculptor, we might be able to finally make the Miracle deck work in Modern. So I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying this is a bigger piece than it looks. And Brainstorm, Brainstorm would be way too good for Modern. It's already too good for Legacy, but people just like it, so it doesn't get banned, which is fine. Nothing against that, but that's the reality. So, Brainstorm, way too good for Modern. So, yeah, this card's obviously no Brainstorm. You're paying a lot more mana for it, but
Brainstorm's worth more than 1 mana.
It is worth more than 1 mana, absolutely. Is it worth quite 3? We'll find out. But I think this card has a very real, I know a lot of these have kind of been oh, maybe it'll see play. I don't know. But I think this has out of my underrated cards, this is the one I'm actually the most excited about. With that being said, of course, this could see no play. But I think, I would bet more likely than not this will see play.
So I have 2 shout outs. Cause one, I think Academy Manufacturer, which is 3 for a 1/3 artifact creature assembly worker, that reads, if you create a clue, food, or treasure token, create 1 of each instead. That card with Urza seems messed up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We talk about artifact garbage. This card makes a ton of garbage.
It does. And just remember, you can use the treasure to crack the clue or to crack a food. So that makes your clues and your foods kind of half cost, whenever you're, going nuts or going ham on this. And it's not that hard to make a lot of food, or treasure, clues you can make pretty easily, foods you can make pretty easily, treasures are a little bit harder to come by, I think.
Yeah, you only need to make 1 to get all 3, so it's not like you have to make 3. But yeah, actually the only reason I didn't bring up this card is I honestly thought people were kind of on this card,
Yeah, I think people know now. I just want to make sure people know.
Fair enough.
This card kind of looks cute. It is not cute. If you just make 2 or 3 foods,
yeah,
and you get all of them, you don't need your artifact junk or your affinity for artifacts or, any of those sorts of payoffs to be that bad. This card with the red suspend card also, you can make a ton of permanents really quickly. And the red suspend card reads, I think it's not quite Warp World, right?
It's Warp World for you, but not your opponent.
Yeah, so shuffle all permanents you own into your library, reveal that many cards from the top of your library, put all non-aura permanents revealed this way onto the battlefield, then do the same for auras.
which
put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order.
I don't know why they word. Oh, actually, no, they had to word it that way because then you wouldn't get your auras. Yeah, fair enough.
Yep.
But,
So this card just creates a lot of permanence really fast, and that can always do something messed up.
yeah.
But the card, if you want to know how conflicted I am, I like Dermotaxi.
Dermotaxi, eh?
I've got Reanimator cards as best card, overrated card, and underrated card in different elements, in different colors. Dermotaxi, 2. Artifact Vehicle. It's a 0/0. Imprint. As Dermotaxi enters the battlefield, exile a creature card from a graveyard. Tap 2 untap creatures you control. Until end of turn, Dermotaxi becomes a copy of the exiled card, except it's a vehicle artifact in addition to its other types. You wanted your 2 mana on time reanimate effect for Gristlebrand?
Yeah.
I give you Dermotaxi.
And the ridiculous art to boot.
I love the Flintstones reference that's going on there. I love that this was clearly just a taxidermy joke, but that rate on reanimate anything, it's a different angle of reanimate. You would need creatures in play to make this a reanimate effect. But darn if it doesn't reanimate Gristlebrand.
Yeah, it does it all. No strings attached. You can even, if you really want to get cute, you can also, like, I don't know if this would even be good, but you can circumvent ETBs. Like, if there's a creature with a really, really bad ETB, like, you can, like, I don't know, a Phage, I guess, isn't legal in Modern, but, like, something like that. But, yeah, but that's more cutesy. What you're talking about, getting the Grizzlebrand back, that's, like, what you do with it. I am not nearly smart enough to build a Dermotaxi deck. Like, are you kidding me? I have no clue. But the card's very, like, 2 mana reanimate, very powerful. Very, very powerful. So.
You Memnite, one with nothing. No.
Oh yeah, no, like, there's ways to do it. Like, it's just like, because, like, having creatures in play and reanimating stuff, they're like, there's tension there, So I don't know how to build that. I'm not gonna pretend like I do.
You play what's the one that mills you 3 when it comes into play?
Oh, Stitcher Supplier? Yeah, you absolutely.
You play Stitcher Supplier, you play Memnite, and then you Dermotaxi.
And you're like, let's go.
And then vroom, from the town of Bedrock. I mean, this thing doesn't get haste, right?
No, but the
vehicle to hang out for a turn.
You put the Grizzlebrand in play, you draw 7 cards, you grief him a few times. You're probably winning from that. Oh yeah, grief seems pretty good with this card. You can tap it with the evoke trigger on the stack.
That's true.
That's a thing.
Get that trigger.
Yeah, you just go like turn 1, Stitcher Supplier, obviously hit the creature you need. Turn 2, Dermotaxi, evoke grief, trigger on the stack, put the thing in play. Easy. Let's go.
Can you target yourself with grief?
No, you can't. But...
Boo.
That wouldn't be too good. I don't know. They just don't make modern cards like that as much anymore, but,
It would not be too good.
Would it?
Yeah, this is a card that I want to see play. I don't know that it ever will, but look at that card. Look at its tusks. Look at that family, that modern Stone Age family riding in it.
Hey, it's powerful. Like, the effect is powerful. So, like, that's what you need. That's what you need when you're looking for cards that are good. So, I'm not saying it will either, but it's got a chance.
And I think the last card we need to talk about is probably Urza's Saga.
Oh yeah, if we're jumping the land,
might be the best.
That is,
might be the best card in the set.
Easily,
who knows?
Easily the best card in the set. I think this card is so powerful. I mean, there's a lot of powerful cards this card's fighting with. Like, this is, I think, like, if someone like put a gun in my head and said pick the best card in the set, I'd be like, Urza Saga, done. Don't even think about it. Like I wouldn't even.
So it is a 0 mana. So it's
it's an enchantment land.
It's an enchantment land, which is very fitting. I love the little reference that the Urza Saga block was supposed to be an enchantment block, but all the artifacts were so broken that everyone ignored the enchantment themes.
Yeah.
And so Urza Saga is an enchantment land. Urza Saga, that on Chapter 1, Urza Saga gains tap, add colorless. Chapter 2, Urza Saga gains 2 tap, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. And then Chapter 3, search your library for an artifact card with mana cost 0 or 1 and put it into the battlefield, then shuffle.
Yep, and then it dies because that's what sagas do when you hit chapter 3. Or the last chapter, I guess.
Yep. So, Urza Saga, I mean, it starts out as a colorless land that comes in untapped, which is fine. Chapter 2, like getting to make a XX, where X is the number of artifacts you control, can be situationally very powerful.
Yeah, it's even better than that, too, because it's like you can make the thing, and then you put more artifacts in play, and it gets bigger. So, even better than an XX.
Yeah, that's true. It gets bigger, and it counts itself, so it always survives.
Yeah, the other big thing, too, is having this on Chapter 2 means you can activate it twice before it dies, so you can make...
Yep.
And it also gets an artifact, so this land, with literally zero help, like with no help whatsoever, makes 6 power split across 2 bodies and tutors your deck for a specific artifact.
And puts it into play.
And puts it into play. Puts it straight into play. Like, unbelievable. Like, this card is so crazy. If this card isn't banned, I'd be pretty surprised, honestly. Like, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. This is my, like, you know, we always
100%.
have points like what card in Modern Horizon get banned. I'm pointing at this one.
Yeah, I don't know that a free tutor that also can kill your opponent in a land slot is acceptable, even if it leaves you down a land after 3 turns. There are so many artifacts that you can get that put you ahead on mana.
Like, I've been seeing people playing Life from the Loam with this thing, and it is scary. Scary.
Oh, totally. And it puts itself in the graveyard so that you can Life from the Loam even harder. Like, you can do a number of different things with this card. And it's an enchantment land, which might be relevant at some point. Like, that 2 mana... that suspend white card that gets you back enchantments. It gets you back Urza Saga.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually very fitting on theme that, like, you know, you were talking, they're paying a homage to Urza Saga. It was supposed to be the enchantment block, but the artifacts were really busted. And here it's an enchantment land, but the artifact themes are very busted. So
100%.
Very on theme. But yeah, this card, unbelievably powerful. Like, yeah, even Ragavan is just pales. I don't know if it pales, but I'd say Ragavan is less powerful than this.
Less egregious.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Less egregious than this card. This card...
I mean, this card asks nothing of you. You just put it in your land slot, and it tutors up. There's so many powerful cards it tutors. Yeah. In every format.
Like, have we learned nothing from Field of the Dead? Lands that just create bodies and generate value are too good. Obviously, this is like Field of the Dead and this are very different cards, but they both generate a ton of value for not that much of a cost. And yeah, like, it's just like this card. Oh yeah, another thing is like when I talk with people about this card, it's like this card is basically like Karn Scion of Urza, which is like an okay-ish 4-mana planeswalker, but like rather than playing a 4-mana planeswalker, it's just a land. Like, it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So, look forward to playing against this card a whole lot.
A lot. It also fits into a lot of decks, because, like, all you need to do is, like, play lands and, like, be okay with a colorless land in your deck. I think that's the cost of putting this card in your deck, being okay with a colorless land. Which, you know, is a cost. Like, you know, Blue-Red Prowess can't play it, because they are not okay with a colorless land. So, you know, not literally every deck, but I don't know.
Any deck that wants an artifact at any point.
Yeah, and the worst part is it's like the decks that optimize it the best are going to be the best. Because, like, honestly, I would consider playing some number of this in blue-white control, but the problem is that, like, the decks that really play Urza Saga are just going to do it better. It's also very good in the primetime decks because they can, like, you know, activate this and they bounce it with their bounce land and they do it again and they just make a ton of value off of it. So,
yeah, go get your amulet.
Oh yeah, get your amulet. You just get your amulet and bigger on chapter 3. Oh yeah, it's insane. It's insane in amulet.
Yeah, it just gets you the amulet or the second amulet.
Oh yeah,
if you got the amulet naturally.
Yeah, and you know, yeah, and like amulets and multiples are just great anyway. So yeah, no, those cards.
Totally. Yeah, this card does so many things. It is very egregious. There's a reason why lands don't usually do anything other than make mana.
Yep.
Yeah, so look forward to this.
Yeah, it'll get. I'm just gonna. I don't care about hot takes. This card's getting banned. I'm putting.
I don't think it's that hot a take.
Yeah, I'm putting my good name on. I'm staking my good name on this one. This one's getting banned.
Yeah. The only thing I should word to the wise, it says mana cost 0 or 1, not converted mana cost.
Yeah.
Or mana value.
Yeah, that's that.
So
I think that's like this is the first time they're actually utilizing the change. Because it used to be converted mana cost, as you said, was how you'd say like the amount it costs. But now they changed to mana value, and now mana cost is the literal thing in the top right corner. Like,
yes. So you can't get Lotus Bloom with this. You can't get
God
the soul ring. Like you need to get an actual 0 or 1.
Yeah, okay, that if you could just get straight up, just get a Black Lotus with this card, like, ugh.
Yeah, they tested that. They probably tested that. They're like, no,
God.
They thought of the first thing we thought of.
Yeah. And also when I saw this card, I'm like, okay, guess Mox Opal's never coming off the ban list, huh?
Yep. As it should be. But Mox Amber is still legal, so play with Urza's Saga.
Yeah, you can do that. Jesus, this card.
Play
this card
the Moxes that they give you.
Because it's like, they always print this card that makes control unplayable. And like, once it was like Hogak before, and now it's this card. And I'm just like, I just want to play my counterspells, man. That's all I want to do.
You didn't want to get beaten by a land?
I don't want to get beaten by a land. Like, I literally have Field of Ruin, and I'm like, okay, you have to Field of Ruin it right away. And even if you do Field of Ruin it right away, they just get it back with life from the loam, or just play another copy. And like, Field of Ruin makes you trade down on mana, so even if you do it, I'm going off now. But you get the point.
That's fine. All right, with Urza's Saga, we close the chapter on Modern Horizons 2.
Yeah, all things considered, it's actually a lot less busted than at least I think.
Well, facially, we are not sure. It is entirely possible that it is as busted as Modern Horizons 1. It is definitely busted. It looks about as busted as many of the sets that came out 2 years ago, which could mean that it ruins every format. It could mean that it just puts a few decks into the stratosphere. We'll see. Yeah,
it's definitely going to shake things up, though. Modern is not what it was a week ago, so look out for that.
So thank you, Kyle, once again. And if people want to find you on Twitch or such, where should they look for you?
Twitch.tv/WorldGorger115. So if you go there, I stream some from time to time there. So, check it out if you like legacy content. That's mainly what I do there. As the name implies, play World Gorger Dragon. So, it's a fun meme deck. So yeah, if you like that, that sounds interesting.
All right. And thank you, listeners. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Till next time, peace.